This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What's going on, Winnipeg? Happy Friday, and welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. A big day in the Peg. And I think you all know what we're going to be talking about today. Jonathan Toews is a Winnipeg Jet. It has been announced this morning that Toews and the Winnipeg Jets have agreed to a one-year contract, and he is returning to the National Hockey League in his hometown, having last played in 2023. We're going to go over what the contract looks like, what this means for the team. We're going to get a ton of fan feedback from you in the chat today. And, of course, if you're listening on the podcast, we love to get your thoughts after the fact. Hit us up on our social channels at Sports Talk WPG on X, Instagram, Facebook. You all know where to find us. This has been something we've been talking about for a long time. This is the most decorated player that this city has ever produced. Jonathan Toews is going straight into the Hockey Hall of Fame at his first opportunity, although ironically, this is going to push that back a few years because of the waiting period after one finishes his career. And Jonathan Toews' career is not over, and he's coming back to the National Hockey League and doing it in his hometown. It's a monumental signing, I think, for the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, for a number of reasons. We've talked extensively about a comeback and what this might look like, considering the fact that he's been out for more than 2 years from the National Hockey League. And I think, expectations for some need to be couched. But I think at the same time, for people that are writing Jonathan Toews off and thinking that, he doesn't have much to give, I don't think for a second that someone with his resume in the National Hockey League would consider for a minute to come back if they couldn't be a very, very good version of themselves and bring a lot to an organization. And we're going to be kicking that around. Greg Wyshynski is going to join us coming up. We'll also get his thoughts on the aftermath of the Cup final and the top stories in the league heading into free agency and, of course, the draft next week. But make no mistake about it, the biggest story in hockey today is Jonathan Toews returning to the National Hockey League in his hometown of Winnipeg. It's great to have you all with us today on the program. Jeff Hamilton's going to join us as well. We're not going to forget about the Bombers. Big game tomorrow, the rematch between the Bombers and Lions. Likely going to see two different starting quarterbacks that played at Princess Auto Stadium last week. Zach Collaros will make a season debut. And the depth chart is out for the BC Lions, and Jeremiah Masoli is listed as the starter. Nathan Rourke still a game-time decision. So we'll kick that around with Hammer. I think we might have Hacksaw join us a little later on. And we'll certainly spend a little bit more time with fan feedback and hearing from you on the Toews signing and your thoughts about the deal that was announced earlier today by the Winnipeg Jets. Listen, just before we bring in Michael Remis, welcome to everybody on the program. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already. And if you're just finding us on a big news day for the Winnipeg Jets, hit that subscribe button. We're here every day throughout the season, throughout the off season, Monday to Friday, 1 p.m. Central, right here on YouTube. And you can find Winnipeg Sports Talk on any of your favorite podcast platforms, even Spotify, that was down a little bit yesterday. But that has been rectified thanks to Gary Parks and a few of the other people that let us know that their usual feed was not updating yesterday. So we got that done. And just before, or as I bring in Michael Remis, a huge thanks to everyone that came and joined us at the ballpark last night. What a great time for our WST patio party. fully sold out. We had so many of the regulars, so many of you that were here with us daily on the program join us yesterday. Of course, Remo, Liz, Connor there, Mike McIntyre and Ken Weeb joined us. And what a heck of a ball game. We got a comeback 8-7 win by the Gold Eyes on an absolutely glorious night at Blue Cross Field. And if you missed that event, don't miss the next one. We'll be doing maybe another one at the ballpark, maybe one at the Downs later on this year. And of course, we'll do more Jet games in our WST section coming up next season. Hey, big thanks to the sponsors that make the show happen each and every day. Of course, our partners at Coolbet Canada. Don't forget, next Monday night, 8:30, we're going to be doing another WST poker tourney, and the top two finishers will get a ticket into the finals, the Canadian finals, for a trip to Estonia for the Coolbet Poker Open later on this year. An unbelievable trip. We'll tell you about that later on. Of course, the gang of Princess Auto, Prairie Toyota dealers, Ben Moss, St. Vital Dental Center and Rowley's Transfer, Canadian Club, Manitoba Battery, Aikens Lake, F Apparel, Royal Sports, Little Brown Jug, Boston Pizza, the Gold Eyes, Assiniboia Downs, Breezy Bend. We'll get to a why not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. And fan feedback brought to you by Fans First is going to be popping today as well. Let's get this going. Welcome to everybody in chat, and welcome to you, Michael Remis. How about that? Big news day today in the Peg.
Yeah, I thought we were going to have a day talking about the Florida Panthers in the club last night with the Stanley Cup. Elks losing again at home to Montreal yesterday. But no, we're waking up to some big Jets news. Jonathan Toews coming home to Winnipeg. And I think got to be exciting. A player of that stature, three-time Stanley Cup champion, Conn Smythe winner, Olympic gold, from Winnipeg. I think great news, and Kevin Cheveldayoff adding in the press release, we are excited to add a proven winner like Jonathan Toews to the Winnipeg Jets. It will be a unique opportunity for Jonathan to play for his hometown team. His talent, drive, and experience will be a great compliment to our club, and they can't really comment further because while they have agreed to terms, technically the contract cannot be signed until July 1, and Toews noting us, I'm grateful to be making my return to the NHL with the Winnipeg Jets. It's very special to come home and play in front of my family and friends in Manitoba. The Jets have been on the rise over the last few seasons, and I'm eager to join the group and help however I can. So, very exciting 1-year contract, Jonathan Toews. And big turnout today, so shout out to everyone who's in the chat saying hi.
Yeah, listen, we knew the business would pick up heading in next week with the draft. And, I really coupled the most interesting weeks of the hockey offseason before things get a little quiet mid-July up until training camp. But this had been, along with Nikolai Ehlers' future, the top couple stories on this program and in hockey conversations outside of the Cup final for the last number of weeks. And, it was interesting when our friends at Coolbet threw the odds up, what was it, about a week ago, for where Jonathan Toews would sign. A lot of teams were listed, but the Winnipeg Jets were at the top. And I think that came from a lot of reports that, dating back to last season, that Winnipeg was keenly interested and, potentially had a unique in with Toews as a landing spot for him to restart his career and return to the National Hockey League. And, as I said, I'm not going to pin any expectations on number of games he plays, how he'll look right out the gate. But I will say this, and I guess I've said it a few times before. I think Jonathan Toews definitely might surprise a lot of people with what he's bringing back in just on the ice. But the other side of it, Reem, and I was thinking about this more this morning, after the news became official or the announcement from the club. The Toews effect in that locker room. And I started thinking about what it'll be like for a guy like Braden Yeager to be going through training camp, a guy that was with Sidney Crosby in his first training camp, now to be, in the locker room daily with a guy like Jonathan Toews. I mean, like the impact he can have and, what he can impart on younger players. But to be honest, then I started thinking about the roster overall. I mean, Mark Scheifele, Josh Morrissey. I mean, the leaders on this club. I mean, Jonathan Toews is known as one of the great captains and leaders in recent NHL history. And I think that there is a real, another kind of intangible side to this signing that for a team like the Winnipeg Jets will have huge, huge value. So, listen, I was hopeful that this would happen. I still think that there's a lot of work to do for the Winnipeg Jets, and I don't think this just magically solves the center ice position, especially when you consider Adam Lowry is going to be out for the first month or 2 months of the season recovering from hip surgery. But all in all, I mean, you're not giving up any assets to acquire this player. You're getting a number of things that every team would love to add to their lineup. And I do think there's a ceiling that could be huge for the Winnipeg Jets. And as we break down the contract, they'll pay for it if that happens. But again, it's sort of low risk, high reward, and a high ceiling for a player that has 3 Stanley Cups, has done everything in hockey that there is to do, and now coming back with a little bit of unfinished business to his hometown team, a team that certainly has a spot for him and could help the use of his services.
Yeah, we haven't really had a hometown player with that kind of role in the lineup. Eric Fair signed, or what they traded for him when they returned, and he had a rough season battling injury. Cody Eakin they traded for, but a player like Jonathan Toews, headed to the Hockey Hall of Fame, coming to Winnipeg, from Winnipeg. I mean, there's a community center named after him after he made a large donation to Dakota. It's
he's got a lake too.
He's done everything. So here's the contract. Elliot Friedman tweeting this out with help from Ken Wiebe. So he gets
good work, Weber.
Yeah,
good work.
Nice work. So he gets $550,000 bonus after 20, 30, 40, 50, and 60 regular season games with a $2 million base salary. So, if he plays 60 games, that's about $4.75 million. And then if they get in the playoffs and he plays 50 games, that's an additional $500,000. If they win the first round and he plays 50%, another $250,000. And same thing for second and third. And if they win the Stanley Cup and he plays 50% of the final, he gets $1 million. So this contract, while it has a base salary of $2 million, could be easily worth up to close to $5 million if he plays over 60 regular season games. If they make the playoffs again, I mean, it's another $500,000. And when they win the first round and he plays half those games, $250K. So this contract isn't like min salary deal. It has potential with bonuses to go up very high, and a lot of people out there wondering, well, how do bonuses get calculated in terms of the salary cap? At the end of the year, you add up all the bonuses and add them onto your current salary cap. So what's this year, like 95.7? I can't switch tabs right now. And then if it goes over, they would be applied to next season. So that is how bonuses are treated.
Yeah, exactly. Now we'll see how much, where the Jets are at, in relation to the cap. If they go up and you've got the room this year, that'll be added. If not, they'll be added into it next year. But again, the cap's going up in the next 2 years. This seems like a really, really fair deal. I mean, you bring him in if he plays a lot and contributes a lot and is able to be that guy, he'll get paid what a player of his caliber and contribution would be deserving. Actually, I would argue that at his age, I mean, when you look at what Brad Marchand's going to be getting, probably in excess of $8 million on a reported 4-year deal, which will take him to 41. I think that, it protects the team, but if Toews comes back and looks like, he's turned back the clock to the guy that, was 31 as opposed to 37, it helps this team win hockey games and get to the playoffs and win some series, the organization will be more than happy to pay these bonuses. And listen, if the team is in a situation where they're right at the cap and these bonuses put them over, that'll be an overage. There's room the following year with the salary cap going up. So, I mean, listen, the money is always part of any transaction in a salary cap league. But this wasn't all guaranteed money where you're saying, here's here's $8 million to come in and you're crossing your fingers. I think this is, it sounds like, and you can tell that there's been and we'll find out more when we hear more from Kevin Cheveldayoff and from Toews. I think these conversations date back to last year, and I think many of us thought that it would have been cool if he could have popped in and, resumed his career last year to help the Jets in that playoff push and potentially in the playoffs. But I will give Toews credit. He said that, he's not going to do it last year. He wants to get the full summer of training and truly be at his best and be ready to go and help whoever won his services. And that team is the Winnipeg Jets. And tell you what, Reem, it is going to be a very, very interesting first day of training camp when the former Conn Smythe Trophy winner and 3-time Stanley Cup champion shows up for his first day of official work with the Winnipeg Jets, and also thinking of what that welcome is going to be like when he puts on a Jets jersey and plays for the first time at Canada Life Center next season.
Yeah, former Selke winner as well. He's been a leader in the league in faceoffs, spots that are needed with the Winnipeg Jets. What does he have left at age 37? I think there's a lot of unknown there, and we'll see what happens when he hits the ice. But as far as right now, I think the excitement for bringing a hometown guy home, you can see it in the chat by the bump in viewers today. People already probably lining up at Royal Sports wondering where they can get a Toews jersey.
Well, speaking of which, speaking of jerseys, is there going to be a little piece to Gus for number 19?
Yeah.
I'm sure Gus will be more than happy on abdicating number 19. He's actually had some rough luck the last few years. It might be a good idea to maybe swap up the jersey number, but it's very hard to imagine Jonathan Toews wearing any other number in the National Hockey League than 19.
Yeah, I saw Dan Robertson wondering on X, does Gustafson get a new watch out of this deal? I'm not sure what the going rate
Rolex
for a number is, but I can't imagine any scenario where Jonathan Toews does not wear number 19 in his hometown. So, we'll see what happens when he hits the ice, and I imagine at that salary, they're expecting him, 2-3 center. Adam Lowry's going to be out. Would he slot in the Lowry spot for the start of the season, and then with the potential to move up in the lineup, and you run it back with Nemestikov, as the lineup stands now. We don't know what other changes are going to be taking place. We're already seeing a number of trades around the NHL and signings over the last 24 hours since the cup was handed out. But bringing a guy like Jonathan Toews home, you can see the excitement here, and hopefully it works out. Hasn't played us since April 2023, but you noted Gabe Landeskog didn't play for 3 years as well, rehabbing from some rough injuries, and came back, and he made an impact for Colorado in the playoffs. Now, Toews a bit older, but we just saw Brad Marchand in the Stanley Cup final. What was he? Second vote for the Conn Smythe. So I don't think
he was right there.
Yeah,
I think Bennett had 72 points from the votes, and Marchand was 68. So, he was absolutely right there. He certainly gets the Conn Smythe for trolling, by the way, if anyone has been paying attention. If anyone's been paying attention. The Panthers really are the rats, and he was the perfect guy to come in there. The way that every single person that has been with a different team, Marchand is sending out thanks to it. He did it with a picture of Nate Schmidt and said, "Thanks at NHL Jets." All of them were pretty funny. Although the one with Maurice at "Thanks NHL Jets," I don't know why anyone's thanking the Jets for Maurice. He straight up quit on the team and left. So I don't know if you can blame that. The Jets, if anything, hung on to Maurice and did not want to part ways. And he decided to beat it in the middle of the season. And then, according to him, went fishing for 4 days and then got a call from Bill Zito and thought, okay, maybe I'm ready to go back with the team that did just go back to the Cup final. But Marchand's troll game, the entire Panthers troll game, and if you like trolls and like trolling, maybe you're a Panthers guy. I think everyone else is sort of sick of these guys. But, hey, to the victors go the spoils, and they're certainly having a lot of fun rubbing everyone's noses in it that they are the back-to-back champions of the National Hockey League. But back to Toews. This is a guy that wants to go out on his own terms, and the comeback story And listen, you hear people refer to different things about COVID and long COVID. I mean, it's been reported that he battled long COVID. I'm not really sure exactly what that is, but chronic immune response syndrome. And it really hampered him to a point where, he missed the entire 2021 season, did come back, but I don't think was really himself, and, had to step away, having not played since April of 2023. What's really interesting, and this was documented in that GQ article, Reem, he traveled to India for a 5-week healing retreat. I guess going with some, what do they call it? Non-conventional or natural medicine? I'm not sure. People can check it out if they want. It's from GQ a little while ago. And did talk about drawing inspiration from everything that Gabe Landeskog did to come back, to get back to the National Hockey League. And, what's different about Landeskog is that he had a contract, he was signed, he was with his club the entire time, and never he was the captain the entire time throughout all of that, since they won the Stanley Cup. Whereas Toews, took these last couple of years off to heal himself, first and foremost as a human and then an athlete, and has now ramped things up over the course of the past 6 months, been training in Arizona. I know he was skating in Minnesota, and from all accounts, a pretty intensive summer he's getting into right now, which is going to take him to training camp. So not surprising that there's a lot of excitement and a lot of extra people in the chat today, Reem, because let's face it, this is the story around the National Hockey League right now. But for a Winnipeg team that has been searching for more depth, more experience, for guys that have won, to have the opportunity on a low-risk, high-reward deal for Jonathan Toews, I think is a real coup. And to be honest, it is a feather in the cap of the Winnipeg Jets that they were able to get this done, because we'd heard Tampa was interested. We've heard Colorado. A number of other teams, I'm sure, would have loved to take an opportunity to bring a guy with the Toews resume in. And doing it at home for the Winnipeg Jets, I never thought that this was possible, watching him dominate the league all those years with the Chicago Blackhawks in the Central Division where Winnipeg was. But I'll tell you what, it sets up for an incredible storyline going into the season. And I'll tell you what, if Jonathan Toews can get back to where he hopes and feels that he can be, that story might be even better than anyone could have imagined.
Yeah, I'm sure the ovation for his first, starting lineup announcement at Canada Life Center will be huge. Toews merchandise will be flying off the shelves. So,
yeah.
Hey, I think it's exciting, and we'll see how, we'll see what time will tell. What we can project lines, go on the ice. I did look at Huss. The Jets traditionally have not really dipped into free agency, and I did wonder, is this the Jets' biggest free agent contract ever? There haven't been a lot of them. I looked it up. What did I have? Paul Stastny, $3.75 million 1-year deal, July 2021. So kind of comparable for a center, Huss. What was the other one? Dmitry Kulikov, 3 years. That's 2-time Stanley Cup champion.
Yeah.
Dmitry Kulikov, 3 years at $12.9 million total. That's July 1, 2017. Matthew Perreault, 3 years, $9 million total. How about this?
What about Ole?
Ole, yeah. Ole, it's funny. I looked up Ole. Ole, I guess because he's not active anymore, doesn't have a Puckpedia profile. And I was about to email Puckpedia, like, you don't have Ole, like NHL legend, Ole Jokinen, but I think it was a 2-year, $8 million contract. 2-year, $9 million in July 1, 2012. So not a very long list of, free agent contracts over like $2 million AAV. And there's Jonathan Toews, so we'll have to compare it going forward.
Yeah, no doubt. Listen, let me do quickly. Greg Wyshynski is going to be jumping on in just a minute. Shout out to our friends at Rolly's Transfer, the moving experts in Winnipeg, family owned and operated for over 60 years, and the most trusted name in the moving game. If you have a move coming up, folks, hit the website, Rollies.com, click on request an estimate, and use the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies. You can, of course, give them a call as well, and keep your eyes out for the WST truck on the roads of Winnipeg. If you see it, snap a pic. We'll be running a little contest through July and August for those of you that see the Winnipeg Sports Talk Rollies truck. But you let them know when and where you're moving, what needs to be moved. They'll take care of you with the white glove treatment that they are famous for. Rollies.com for all of your moving needs. Of course, a lot of smiles in Winnipeg today with the big news about Jonathan Toews. To take care of that smile for you and your family, talk to our pal Dr. Terry over at St. Vital Dental Center. They've got a beautiful new facility at 167 St. Anne's. Free parking in the background, right behind the building, and a full array of dental services from cleanings and checkups all the way to things like dental implants. Serving generations of Winnipeggers, they can make you and your family part of their team as well. Hit them up at stviteldental.ca online. Hey, the weekend is here. Cheers to our friends at Canadian Club, Canada's favorite Canadian whiskey, of course, in the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Pop by your local Manitoba liquor marts before tomorrow's big game between the Bombers and the British Columbia Lions. You can pick up CC and check out the club pack right now. Perfect for summer. The CC and ginger ale, the half and half, and the citrus splash waiting for you, ready to go. Pre-mixed cocktails in cans at your local Manitoba liquor marts. And just as we bring in Wish, folks, another big weekend. Many of you getting out, opening up cabins if you haven't already, getting boats in the water, getting those ATVs on the road. You need batteries for everything, and Manitoba Batteries, your local option where you will save a ton and get the best customer service. And, it's time for everyone to wake up and drive past those big box national stores, shop local, save up to $60 a battery. And, of course, they've got the best customer service and will deliver those to you for free as well with any purchase over $60 anywhere inside the perimeter. So pop by Manitoba Battery, Logan Avenue, Dovercourt Drive. Give them a call or order online today and save big at ManitobaBattery.com. All right, let's get to the big news of the day. I thought we were just going to be talking about the Stanley Cup aftermath, but there's big news in the NHL that's coming out of Winnipeg. Greg Wyshynski of ESPN joins us now. Wish, great to have you on the program. How are you? Have you recovered from the run that is the Stanley Cup final?
No, I was just thinking about that this morning. I need a day of just like comatose bed sleeping, I think, to reorient my body. But I'm getting there. And again, like, could be worse. Could be preparing to fly back from Winnipeg tomorrow, which would have been an even longer trip. But listen, fun final. I know it didn't exactly end in the most thrilling and dramatic of ways, especially compared to what's happening in the NBA. But the right team won. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, listen, I mean, we'll get to the Cup final in a minute and sort of the aftermath as we get into free agency. But speaking of free agency, I mean, the biggest news in the league is right out of Winnipeg today. What was your initial reaction when you heard the news that Jonathan Toews will, in fact, as expected, resume his NHL career, and he'll be doing it in his hometown of Winnipeg with the Jets?
I think it's the right spot for him, not only obviously for the history and geographic aspect of the signing, but he's going to be in a place where the pressure of the world isn't going to be on his shoulders returning to the league after this kind of a layoff and this kind of a mental journey, let's call it, for lack of a better phrase, that he's been on of personal discovery. I think if he goes to a place like, if he's the third line center in Edmonton, for example, like now it's Jonathan Toews is going to teach us how to win a cup or whatever, and I think in this case it's kind of, the expectations are going to be there for him to produce and to be important and to be a veteran presence on the team. By no means is he going to face the same kind of pressures he'd face on another team. I'm interested to see where he slides in. Are you thinking 2C right now on this team? Behind?
Well, I mean,
Rifley?
listen, that to me is the best case scenario. I mean, if Jonathan Toews can come back and be, close to what he was, not necessarily in 2010 when he's winning the Conn Smythe or 2012, but a very good version of himself. I mean, right now, when you look at the roster, then I mean, I think that's the ceiling. But and like the way the contract is done up, I mean, it's relatively low risk. You're bringing him $2 million to come in, and there's a number of incentives where if Jonathan Toews is playing 60 games and they're winning a couple rounds in the playoffs, he's going to be paid for that contribution. But it does protect the team and give some major incentives for Toews to come in. And, listen, you'll see some people that'll say, great, the 2C position is solved. I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
There's others that say that, oh, well, if anything, he might be able to play fourth line. And I think that's absolutely insane, because a player like this with this resume, he ain't coming back if he thinks that he's going to be a 6-minute player. I mean, I really do think that Jonathan Toews believes that he still has a lot left, that he can contribute. And, we'll see about that at the end. But it's not like they're just giving a guy $8 million and praying that he's going to be able to solve all their problems.
No, they're not. But I'll bridge the gap between those two viewpoints, because I agree that, the ceiling on him is that if he can somehow put it together, he could be a pretty good functional second line center. I mean, I hesitate to believe that could happen considering the layoff, the age, and what he was when he left. But I mean, if he can crack the code, if he could have a second chapter of the career, who knows, right? But I will humor the people that are like, what do we even expect him to be? Could he even be a fourth liner? Because although I agree that Jonathan Toews clearly believes he can come back, and his agent Paterson obviously believes he can come back, I mean, they're athletes are prideful. Athletes believe wholeheartedly that they can accomplish whatever they can accomplish if they put their minds to it. That's why they're champions. And so there is a part of me that does wonder, what he's coming back as. I still think he's an everyday NHL player. I just don't know what those minutes look like, and I don't know what that effectiveness looks like. But the bottom line is that when you have a chance to add Jonathan Toews to your team, that history, that legacy, those championships, that professionalism, the fact that he wore the captaincy in Chicago for as long as he did, you obviously do it every time. I think we just have to all keep our expectations in check.
Yeah, listen, I'm with you. I mean, I think anyone that's already penciling him into that position, I think needs to pump the brakes a little bit. But at the same time, I mean, I do think that there is a ceiling far beyond a bottom six player that is part of the realm of possibility. And
absolutely,
it's going to be up to Jonathan to come in, have a great training camp, and hopefully feel great and help this team win hockey games. I mean, the fit in Winnipeg, outside of the romanticism of him coming back home and hopefully helping the Jets do things that they haven't done before, like when you look at the other teams that were rumored to be in the mix, the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Colorado Avalanche, the bottom line is, as far as opportunity goes, there is far more right here in Winnipeg. And if he can, let's go best case scenario, that he comes in and looks like he's turned back the clock, there's a spot right now for him in a few places in the lineup that the Winnipeg Jets frankly need, never mind all the intangibles that he can bring for not just the young players, but I think for some of the veterans as well. Yeah,
I mean, I think that's a great point, which is that if you're Toews and you believe you have the upward mobility to play higher in the lineup than a depth forward, you are blocked pretty sufficiently from doing that in Tampa Bay, and you are blocked fairly sufficiently from doing that with Colorado with the Brock Nelson signing. So you're right. I mean, when it comes to where could I be a second line center in this league next season, and where do I feel comfortable? Where do I like the fit? Who's going to contend? I mean, Winnipeg's had to be top of the list for him.
Did you get the sense at all that this was close to happening last year? I mean, we heard a lot of buzz that Toews was considering a comeback, and we certainly thought about, well, listen, who knows what you're getting right now? But again, if he's able to be anything close to what he was, that's a guy that could have helped the team last year. What do you make of the fact this was talked about last year, and he's kind of played the long game, made the decision that now, like 2 months ahead of camp, with a focus on 2025-26?
Yeah, I think he wanted a camp. I think he wanted an off season. I think he wanted to be able to kind of get his feet wetter than they would have been if he had been a late season addition to a contending team. I think it makes total sense when he's had the kind of layoff that he's had, when he's kind of had the time away from the sport that he's had, that it's probably best for his own physical and mental health to have a more traditional season than to just parachute in during the most intense time of the year.
Where's Patrick Kane going?
Is it not Detroit? Did I miss something? I mean, I just assumed.
Is he not a UFA? Like, is the expectations that he'll be a Red Wing next year? I'm not for a second suggesting. You just hear, oh, Kane Toews, and people are asking. I'm just wondering what is Patrick Kane's situation moving forward, as far as you know.
everything I've heard was that it's going to be the Red Wings again. There's always speculation about him going home and playing in Buffalo at some point in his career. He grew up a Sabres fan. So there's always that discussion as well. But from everything I've heard, and admittedly, when you're covering the Stanley Cup final on a day-to-day basis, when you return back to other news, it's like coming back from orbit to see your family again. You know what I mean? Everything I heard was that he's going to be a Red Wing next year, but who knows? And maybe things will change.
Greg, of course, you were on the Cup final beat, traveling back and forth from Edmonton to South Florida. The series is over in 6. The Panthers are trolling everybody right now. But did Sam Bennett break news last night about the 8 more years? Is that basically done? What do we know about Sam Bennett? And I guess looking ahead, if he's back, what does this mean as far as you know for Marchand and Ekblad, 2 guys that they would love to keep as well to keep this championship team intact?
Well, the Toews signing certainly was of a piece with the other news that came out this week. Like Duchesne resigns in Dallas, Toews signs in Winnipeg. Bennett, in a quoting the Wolf of Wall Street, proclaims that he's remaining with the Florida Panthers last night. And all of a sudden, a very thin center market in the unrestricted free agency pool is now like a puddle. Like it's just like there's nothing there anymore at the center spot. So. Here's what I heard during the final about the Panthers. It was that Bennett was basically done. He wanted to stay. They wanted him to stay. They know exactly what his value is to this team when the postseason comes around. I think there was some question about what his price tag ultimately would be away from the Panthers, simply because it's hard to put a number on somebody who has never scored 30 goals in the regular season, but won the Conn Smythe. I don't quite know what that number looks like. And frankly, he loves his time with the Panthers. They love him. It was a great match, and every indication was that it's going to get done. And then he announces last night that it's pretty much done. The other 2 that are obviously more intriguing are Aaron Ekblad and Brad Marchand. Now, the Marchand piece is interesting because Panthers say they want to keep him. He said today while working at a Dairy Queen, because why not, that he's waiting for Bill Zito to give him a contract. And so there's a sense that maybe he could stay. But everything I heard about Marchand during the final was that it's going to be the most years and the most money he can get from anywhere. And because it's his last kick at the can, he was undervalued from a financial standpoint with the Boston Bruins. I mean, we're talking the Leafs. There's been some speculation about Utah maybe going big to get him to bring some rings into the room of a young team. And then the Ekblad part's the really interesting one, which is that the Panthers have a number in mind they'd like to keep him at. It's not anywhere near what he could get on the open market. So if he wants to stay, it's going to be at their number. But there's going to be a number of suitors for him because he's a top pairing defenseman who can be mobile with the puck. I think he'd be silly to leave because beyond the beaches and the championship team, Gus Forsling also isn't elsewhere in this league. But we'll see what happens with Ekblad.
What if you said, this isn't working out, I'm going to take my talents to the highest bidder. How high could an Ekblad deal look like on the 1st of July?
8, 5, 9. Those kinds of defensemen, especially ones with 2 consecutive cups to their credit, don't often come available on the UFA market like this. So my Pelican Brief theory on how they could replace him, pretty great, which is that he leaves, and then for 2 years, you go and trade for Erik Karlsson, have the Penguins retain 25%. That brings his cap hit exactly the same amount of money you're paying Ekblad under the cap right now. And then you get Karlsson and Gus Forsling for like 2 seasons. What do you say? That's Panthery, right? That's a very Panthery move, don't you think?
Yeah, listen, I don't put anything past those guys. The way they built that team has been brilliant. They've taken advantage of some of the inherent advantages maybe they have in the National Hockey League. And Bill Zito has, he's done such an incredible job. Now, listen, Brad Marchand said he wanted to go to Florida. So, they took advantage of that. And who wouldn't? But the Ekblad thing is really interesting because we can't forget about the acquisition of Seth Jones.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people at that time thought that maybe this was the writing on the wall, that Ekblad would be the odd man out, and Seth Jones at $7 million a year with the Hawks taking care of $2 million a season would be that replacement. But then you see just how impactful he was in another championship run, and you realize like that's a tough player to have leave you.
He was good. Yeah, Jones is an interesting one because his pairing with Niko Mikkola, you could make the argument was their best pairing in the postseason. They were great. They were really, really good. But if I think they believe that Seth Jones's best role is as a second pairing guy, kind of like if you think about how the Golden Knights have Pietrangelo and then Theodore, and the Lightning had Hedman and McDonough, right? Like, I think they see Jones ideally as that Theodore McDonough type rather than being a first pairing guy. But, he's paid like a first pairing guy. So, I think their ideal setup is to have whoever Forsling plays with get the most minutes, and then Jones and Mikkola could be like your second pairing. And they're both extremely effective, and they both play the majority of the game. So I guess my short answer is like, I wouldn't necessarily say that Jones is like automatically the Ekblad replacement, because I don't think they want him to necessarily carry that load. But he might have to if there's no replacement there, if Ekblad takes the money and runs.
Hey, I got to ask you on the Edmonton side of things. I know a lot of people, no one wants to talk about it in Edmonton. And to be honest, I mean, I'm not expecting McDavid to sign with another team for his next contract. It might be a shorter deal. But what was your takeaway from listening to Connor McDavid afterwards? There was a lot made of 3 words that he said that gave some people pause, and certainly people in other markets some hope. What's the McDavid temperature, if you will, coming out of a disappointing end of the season?
Well, I seem to remember a plucky young writer named Greg Wyshynski who went on a show called The Sheet with Jeff Merrick and said many months ago, do not take it as gospel that Leon Draisaitl signing his extension means Connor McDavid automatically re-signs in Edmonton. That might seem logical. At the time, a lot of people gave me a lot of grief for that. And here we are. That being said, Connor said yesterday, I've got to think about myself, my family, my future, yada, yada, yada. Exactly what I said. It's not guaranteed he's going to resign. What does this mean? It means the Edmonton Oilers and Stan Bowman have to come to McDavid this offseason and, one, make the commiserate changes they have to make him happy for next season, and 2, map out a plan beyond this season as to where they see this franchise going in the next 4 to 5 years. There are other teams in this league right now that will have the money to sign Connor McDavid, or will make the room to sign Connor McDavid, that maybe have a stronger prospect pool, a goaltender, a star that could be a sufficient 1B to him, like Draisaitl is right now. So I don't think it's guaranteed he signs in Edmonton. I don't. Do I think it's likely? Yeah, sure. His stuff is there. Leon's there. He's got roots there. He probably feels some loyalty to the organization. But ultimately, Connor McDavid's life is dedicated towards winning. And if he doesn't believe that the best opportunity to do that in Edmonton is going to be in Edmonton, not next year, but in the years after that, then he's going to make the right decision for himself and for his future. What he said yesterday is not hyperbolic in the sense that there are a lot of things that are going to have to really bend in the right direction for him, I think, to remain in Edmonton.
I if I had to bet right now, I would think that McDavid at some point this year signs an extension, but of like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And I think that gives them the window, in the prime of Leon, because I do think that he feels like he wants to get it done and get it done there.
Yeah.
But the thing with that 2 or 3 year deal it would take him to 31 or 32. The cap would be in a much bigger place. And at that point, then you figure it out, whether it's in Edmonton or whether it's elsewhere, and you're signing your max deal that's going to take you from 32 to 39 or 40, and obviously max out the cash coming into to a player that both takes advantage of the increases in the cap and his place in the game.
I don't think you're wrong. And in fact, you have to remember that his agent now is Jed Moldaver, who's also Austin Matthews' agent. And if you look at what Matthews did in Toronto, it was not take the 8-year deal. He took a much shorter deal than that, for the very reason of creating a little flexibility for himself at some point to explore unrestricted free agency. And maybe things aren't going great in Toronto. Like, there's all these things that were inherent at the time of Matthews signing that contract. So I agree with you. I do think that there's a path forward where he could go with a shorter term, give it one more hard kick at the can to see if they can seal the deal in Edmonton. If not, then happy trails to the next place. But it's funny. I think if they won the cup, he probably would be gone, because like, my work here is done. It's kind of like LeBron in Cleveland, kind of situation. Like, I've given him all I got, and then I'm going to go and try the new thing. But we'll see what happens. I think yesterday put a shiver down the spine of a lot of Edmonton fans that may have deluded themselves into believing that it was guaranteed he was going to stay. Like you said, smart money is on him staying, but I don't think it's guaranteed, and it hasn't been guaranteed.
Wish, if you had to put a nickel on Mitch Marner's next team as of today, ahead of the 1st of July, who's getting it?
So the team I heard throughout the final were the LA Kings, but I think right now, if you're buzzing around the league, it might be Vegas. One, because they're going to have more LTIR cap space opening up with Pietrangelo next year. 2, because I think it's an ideal place for him. I mean, they've got a veteran core in place that has won, and I think that's the kind of team Marner should look for, if we're being honest, because then he doesn't have to shoulder the load himself, and there's people that can maybe give him a thing or two to think about in the playoffs. But then the other part of it too, and it's funny, we just got done talking about McDavid. Eichel's a free agent next summer, and so you are trying to create as much of a winning environment and as much as a place where you're trying to maybe retain Eichel, and if not, and you've got Marner now, then you've transitioned to the next thing. If Eichel, say, decides he wants to go play in Boston, which more than a few people think he might end up. So Vegas seems to be the one people are talking about, and we'll see how it shakes out. But at this point, the only thing I would say is I'd be surprised if it's not in the West.
Greg Wyshynski of ESPN with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Greg, I wanted to ask you about the Dallas Stars. This was the team that had among the least amount of cap space heading into the offseason. They signed Matt Duchene. We've just seen in the last hour or so that Nils Lundqvist and Maverick Bourque are signed for next year. Those are younger players on RFA deals. With the Duchene re-signing, what does that mean? We've already seen the Mason Marchment. You can maybe talk on that. I was kind of surprised they didn't get more for a guy that plays with that edge, considering what we just saw from the Panthers. But just all the balls in the air that Jim Nill is dealing with right now, how do you see it settling? And might there be another move of a player from last year's roster before they kind of get into the summer?
He plays with an edge, but he's inconsistent in the playoffs, and oftentimes can be a liability insofar as the penalties he takes.
True. So,
I mean, it's not as if it was a slam dunk that he needed to be part of whatever they're building or retooling with down there. I think that obviously had salary cap implications to get some, to get them off the roster and get what they got back. They can use those to try to go out and get the things they need. They need to bolster their blue line in a big way. I think, finding someone who's going to be able to be kind of the third option behind Heiskanen and Harley is essential this offseason. I thought it was I don't think they really solved their defense. I thought when they had Tanev in the previous season, that was the kind of player they needed. And they didn't have him for this run necessarily. And then we'll have to see what else they want to do, like how deep the cuts go. Jamie Benn's going to be back on a contract that'll probably look a lot like Toews's. There was a lot of scuttlebutt during the final about, Jason Robertson potentially being available. If they feel they need to take a huge swing and reconfigure things, then maybe it'll be that. But, the thing that tells me they're probably not going to take a huge swing is that when they fired Pete DeBoer, it started to kind of look like maybe a solution would come internally. A lot of the assistants were kept there. I saw Steve Shutt actually just went to the Bruins, but others have stuck around. I'll be interested to see. I think they like what they've been able to accomplish in the regular season and the postseason, but they've just not been able to get over the hump and leave it to Jim Nill to try to figure out how to get over the hump. He's pretty good at what he does.
It's still a head scratcher how that all went down in the Edmonton series with the Ottinger yank and then Pete DeBoer saying what he said afterwards. I mean, in a lot of ways, looking back, it kind of looked like a guy that figured this was done and was trying to get fired.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't trying to get fired. I think he knew that that there was a possibility it was going to happen if they didn't get past the conference final. And not only because of them just bumping up their head against the ceiling year after year in the West, but because, you know, as they found out in the exit interviews, there was a lot of kind of discontent within the team as far as the players and the way Pete was managing. And I mean, this is now like the third or fourth time this has happened for him with the team. So, I mean, it shouldn't really come as a shock that eventually the message wears thin and the tactics make the players kind of edgy about him. And so I do think that, you know, a lot of people were like, he's trying to get fired. I don't think he's trying to get fired. I think he knew that there was the possibility of it, and he just decided to kind of let her rip.
Yeah, well, there was a little fire there, and he took 2 gas cans to the press conference with himself and just poured them on, and well, we know what happened after that. Obviously, we've got the draft next week. That is a time, although everyone's not in the same place, so we'll see whether there is the same amount of communication from everyone.
Oh God, I know.
Trade deals, potential, and then of course free agency. Just ask you, Wish. I mean, who are the general managers you're most intrigued by and paying the most attention to, both this week and into July 1st, with big moves, or that you're hearing that they're up to something?
I don't know if I'm hearing anybody's up to something necessarily, but obviously Utah is the one to watch. With this was going to always be the off season in which they were going to make probably the biggest noise, with the amount of money that, Ryan Smith has as the owner, with them owning the 4th overall pick. I think that pick's in play. Like, they're a team that I think is going to make a real splash this offseason in some way, because if you look at their roster, I mean, it's all there. Got a ton of really talented young players up front, but now they have to start importing those veterans that are going to help kind of flesh it out, teach them how to win, act like you've been there, yada, yada, yada. I think they're interesting. Then beyond that, I don't know. I obviously, like, where some of these free agents end up is going to dictate a lot of things. I mean, clearly Carolina's trying to keep their powder dry in the hopes that Marner can go there, but I don't think he's going to end up there. And then if he doesn't, then they've got some decisions to make insofar as how to start revamping and retooling that team around a younger core. There's a few that are kind of intriguing. The Rangers obviously should be top of the list for anybody, because they just have to continue to kind of push their team towards whatever identity they're trying to go for. But it's going to be wild, man. Like, the cap is going up, and I don't know if that means that we're going to see a ton of movement or if that means we're going to see a ton of teams retaining their talent. So far, it's been the latter.
Hey, last one, assuming that hopefully this isn't the case, but assuming that Nikolai Ehlers makes it to July 1st, outside of the Jets, who would love to keep him, well, what teams do you think would be most aggressive in trying to acquire the services of the Dane?
I don't know. That's a good question. I haven't really checked the market on him and where he may end up. I mean, obviously he's an extremely talented winger who sometimes has a little bit of a problem staying in the lineup. But do you think he's priced his way out of Winnipeg?
I mean, I don't actually. I mean, I guess it depends. I mean, if the scarcity of players in the free agent market and the cap going up means that Nikolai Ehlers is all of a sudden like a $10 million player, then maybe. But I've thought all along that the Winnipeg Jets could and should put the Scheifele-Hellebuck deal on the table, the 8.5 per year, and maybe because and this could only happen before July 1st. Give him the 8th year on that. That, puts him, at the top of the food chain amongst the most important players and thinks he gets it done. And the thing is, unlike a lot of other players, Greg, Ehlers never said anything throughout the year. His agent has never said anything. Like, we've talked a lot about, maybe he's looking for a first-line role. But we don't know really what is important to him. And he has been a kind of a more quiet guy. I heard the Overdrive guys saying, they had heard he's looking, for more of a quiet place, which is not Toronto, which is not Montreal. And he's had a nice run here. So, I mean, I don't rule anything out. We were all told that the ship had sailed. That's the famous quote on Connor Hellebuck with the Winnipeg Jets, and that he signed here. But I do think that if it gets to July 1st, there is going to be some suitors that, looking around the rest of the league with the cap going up, have some pretty big money, and that number could be in excess of what many people thought was possible for Ehlers on the open market.
Yeah, we shall see. I don't know.
thanks so much for your time, pal, and get some rest after that incredible run from northern Alberta to South Florida.
No worries. Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Take care. There's Greg Wyshynski, ESPN.com for all the information heading into the draft and, of course, free agency around the league. Great stuff with Wish. We're going to get back to a little Toews talk and, of course, Bombers Lions. Jeff Hamilton from the Free Press joining us coming up next Thursday. Princess Auto Stadium, Bombers and Elks, the next home action for your Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Of course, Princess Auto Stadium, home of the blue and gold, and Princess Auto, proud sponsors of the Bombers, the Gold Eyes, Winnipeg Sports Talk, the Jets, and so much more in our sporting community. Headquartered and founded right here in the Peg, Princess Auto is the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Pop by and see them, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, Brandon. And you can shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. I'm really looking forward to getting out to Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. Folks, if you're looking for an incredible fishing experience, fly in where you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg. Aikens Lake is the spot. And as incredible as the world-class fishing is, the hospitality from Pitt, Julie, and the Aikens team is even better. Go to aikenslake.com for all the information on separate options for smaller groups, corporate outings, and of course availability for the 2025 fishing season. Check them out on all their socials at Aikens Lake for more of what the Aikens experience is all about. And gang, with wedding season pretty much here, guys, if you're looking into your closet and realize, it is time to upgrade my menswear, get on down to F Apparel for the best in custom men's clothing with suits starting at $400, chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and the biggest and best selection of menswear accessories in the city. And for all of you guys that are in a wedding party or having a wedding, make sure to talk to F about a great deal and discount for the wedding party when you get your suits at F for the big day. 190 Smith Street downtown, online at F. That's EPHapparel.com. All right, Jeff Hamilton's going to be joining us in a couple minutes. Why not question of the day is pretty obvious today. Why not question of the day for not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray? What's your reaction to the Jets signing Jonathan Toews? There is a lot going on in the chat, but let's just get to the poll right off the bat. And we'll dive into fan feedback right now for fansfirst.ca, your number one spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market. Of course, Fans First was the place for both buying and selling Jets tickets throughout the season. Good news, Bomber tickets also available on Fans First. So if you got a couple extras that you want to get rid of for the game on Thursday, or looking for a couple last minutes, especially with all the sellouts, bookmark fansfirst.ca. No fees. What you see is what you pay at fansfirst.ca. Well, I'm not surprised. People are fired up. Love it. 65% right now. So about 2/3 of Jet fans in the love it category, and 30% in worth a shot. So that's 95% of the electorate today. Skeptical is 4%. Don't like it is 1%. So pretty clearly, Remis, I think especially with the way the contract is structured, this is feeling like a big win for Winnipeg. And I'll be honest, as much as we've talked about it, I think it would have been a big loss at this point if he did decide on another team over Winnipeg. And again, it's a bit of a feather in the cap that the Jets are in a position as to where they are in a team, that a guy like Toews at this point in his career, with what he's looking to do when he returns to the NHL, chose Winnipeg as the spot for his return.
Yeah, I wonder what the asks were from some of the other teams in terms of contracts. Seems like for a guy who hadn't played in a couple of years, the Jets had to open the wallet a little bit, and I'm sure they would be happy to pay those performance bonuses, well, especially the $1 million for winning the Cup. And yeah, Jonathan Toews is a second-line center. You just talked with Greg. Not a lot of centers available. If they weren't able to sign him to play down the middle, wherever spot in the lineup may be, who else would they be looking at? So So, nicely done work there by Kevin Cheveldayoff. We had heard about this for a couple weeks, and I think it adds some excitement, and we'll have to see. Does this, say to Nikolai Ehlers, hey, we got you a guy to play with who can make plays. Maybe he is considering signing in Winnipeg, although Toews is only here for 1 year as of now. Does it say, you mentioned Patrick Kane, everyone's talking in the chat, could he recruit Patrick Kane to come to Winnipeg, and what a boost he would be for the team if Ehlers were to leave. It is kind of funny. I was texting with my cousin. He was like, okay, how many of the Blackhawks dynasty have also played for the Jets now, where you have Ladd, Byfuglien, Toews, Oduya? Can you count Marian Hossa? He played for the Thrashers franchise. Does he count?
No.
So there's certainly some connections between the Jets and the Cup champion Blackhawks. But I mean, the last one 10 years ago. So I think a lot of unknown in terms of Toews. But yeah, I watched the documentary of Gabe Landeskog's return. I'm sure Toews is doing the same thing, working with the best people to get him in the best shape to be able to play. So I think certainly exciting. And the poll is kind of structured like, you're really liking it, liking it a little, and then not really sure, and then really don't like it. So I would say over, 65% love it, 29% worth a shot. I think on a 1-year deal, it's a good gamble here for the Jets.
Yeah, and listen, I think there's a ton of intangibles that, are real positives too. And listen, there'll be intangibles, the way, hopefully his, experience can help other players, the things that he's been through, the winning that he's done. I mean, all of that, and it's tough to put a price on. But you bring up, and listen, I'm not suggesting this is or isn't the case, but it is a question that a couple people have asked me today. And I do wonder if the fact that this got done and announced when it did ahead of July 1st, which is the earliest time that this contract can be signed, if that does at all help the Jets' position when it comes to keeping Nikolai Ehlers. I guess time will tell on all of that, because we certainly haven't heard a lot from Ehlers or his camp right now, just some of the reports that he's planning on getting to a July 1st. But as I mentioned before, I mean, if they are in the neighborhood of the money that he's looking for, and the Winnipeg Jets can add that 8th year, and it fits into, what this team is doing moving forward, I mean, maybe this does up the chances of something like that happening slightly. I guess the waiting game will continue on that. Listen, Jeff Hamilton's going to join us coming up right now. This segment is brought to you by your Prairie Toyota dealers, who want to remind you to get in and go with the Toyota Tundra. Quality that means it has the strength to take on any challenge, off-road or hauling a heavy load, and it's backed by the peace of mind knowing it's a Toyota. So take the road less traveled in comfort, room for teammates, friends, and gear. Can we talk about how good this truck looks? Anywhere it goes, the Tundra is turning heads. Get it now for $154 weekly for 60 months at 5.39% APR with $71.99 down. Hybrid options available. Visit shoptoyota.ca. Let's welcome in Jeff Hamilton to the program. Hammer, what's good, buddy? Great to have you back on the show.
It's always a pleasure, man. I love doing 2 hits with you a week, as we always do our CFL 110 show. So I'm excited. I'm wondering if you're grabbing the mic situation here, Huss. I can tell through your eyes. You guys are such a fluid running operation here. We don't even need to. We just have to look at each other to know exactly what we want. So I'm ready now officially. How are you?
I'm great. And folks, if you missed this week's edition of CFL 110, it of course is available on podcast and up on the YouTube channel. And I kind of figured that we'd come in today and we'd get right into Bombers Lions, but kind of hard to do that after the news today from the local hockey squad. What do you think? Jonathan Toews coming back to the National Hockey League and doing it in his hometown of Winnipeg with the Jets.
I have a few different thoughts, Huss. One, I always felt like Jonathan Toews being in Winnipeg would be a long shot. Not because I didn't think he wanted to necessarily not play for his hometown team, that he wouldn't love to be part of, especially a great Jets team that seems like they obviously are contenders for the Stanley Cup. I hesitate a little bit just because you look at the team that won. And obviously the other 31 teams have a lot of work to do to catch up to the Florida Panthers, but obviously you're in and around that, President's Trophy winners, all that thing. The thing that I felt was the issue for him is he couldn't hide here, right? Like, he can't hide in Winnipeg. So look at the Jets' social media. Like, within 5 minutes of his signing, there were 6 pictures of him pretty much on their social media pages, right? Like, talking about, meant to be all. Listen, my point is the attention is going to be on him. For someone who has been out of the game for that long, would he want that target, if you will, on his back? Would he want to know that someone in the media is going to want to talk to him, perhaps every single day? Go to a guy with that kind of experience, that kind of leadership skills in this league, and ask him important questions. It's not just about the Winnipeg Jets. You'd ask Jonathan Toews about any league-wide question, whereas if he went to a different market, one that had less media, he can kind of hide, right? Here, it's like you're the number 2 guy. You're going to fix the problems for the Winnipeg Jets. Look at the center. Look at the center depth now in Winnipeg, right? There's a lot of excitement around his pickup. Now, the good news, I think, Huss, is the reason why is because, the crutch of that argument, or the crutch of that point, is that I just didn't know if he'd be up to speed and where he needed to be a number 2 center, to be on a team that had Stanley Cup aspirations. This is where the good news is. I don't think Jonathan Toews does this unless he's fully confident with what he has right now in his game. And that should be incredibly good news for Jets fans. Now, anything could happen here, Huss. He could come here and he could look everything like the guy that hasn't been in an NHL game for multiple seasons. Or he could come in, have the shape, need to get up to that game shape. And what a thought it would be to play for your home team and help them in their pursuit of a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I've been pretty clear on this. I don't write, like, there has been some people that have said, well, what's the point? What's he going to have left? I don't think he's coming back if he doesn't think he can be a very good version of himself.
For sure.
I do think that the ceiling for a guy that's walking straight to the Hall of Fame, even at 37 years old, having been through what he's been through with the time off, I think there's the potential that he can be a very, very great addition to the Jets. The other thing that I think about, Jeff, is something that's harder to put a value on, maybe. It's not goals and assists, but the intangibles. Not just to mention, like, right now, at this point of the offseason, announcing this signing today with a week to go before free agency, what this says about where the Winnipeg Jets are. And I think it's a pretty good message to the rest of the National Hockey League that a player like this, is willing to come back, and this is where he's chosen to do it when there's a lot of teams that have been interested in him. The other side of it is the effect that he can have from day one of training camp, starting with the young players like the Braden Yeagers, the Brad Lamberts. This is a great addition just to come in and be part of your group. But I think that his experience and everything that he's been through can also help the Mark Scheifele's, the Josh Morrisseys, guys that, have been in the league for a while, but obviously don't have a lot of the experiences that Toews has.
Yeah, there's no denying that. How could you, right? This is a guy who has 3 Stanley Cups, was a captain of that organization through its dynasty years, if you will. And, not to dismiss that, Huss, but that's kind of the burden I'm talking about, right? Like, it's a guy who's trying to compete in the top league in the world after multiple years away from the game. And to get to that level, it's an incredibly difficult thing. So I use the word burden honestly here, in the sense of being, whether it's bringing his experience and expertise and to the leadership group, or to, as you mentioned, the Brad Lamberts of the world. Maybe just simply being able to watch him and how he handles himself will be that. I'm not necessarily suggesting that he's going to have to put his arm around all the young guys and teach him everything he knows about the game, or call a meeting with the leadership group and go over what it is they're doing. They've obviously had some success on the ice, but certainly would be one of those guys in those moments in the playoffs when, regardless if you're Mark Scheifele or you're Brad Lambert, can be overwhelming. Maybe he can bring some calmness to that. Talking a little bit ahead of time here, but that's obviously the goal here. The part that, to my original point, Huss, we know the Winnipeg Jets wanted him, right? This is a guy who, of course, has roots with Kevin Cheveldayoff during their time in Chicago. which was an interesting time, as we all know. Also, he's got the roots here, so it's a great story. It helps sell tickets, right? So I'm wondering how much of that other stuff is being played in the Jets' psyche and minds, and how really convinced they are that this guy could potentially be their 2C. I get that Adam Lowry is a guy who isn't your typical 3C, that he has more ice time, but Adam Lowry ain't going to be at camp in September. So, and how better is Adam Lowry going to be getting after hip surgery? I'll tell you what, guys, Andrew Ladd had double hip surgery one time, and he did everything in his power to keep it a secret, because that's the surgery you don't want to have. Hip surgeries are not good surgeries. So to suggest that I'm not saying Adam Lowry's going to come back and be a worse player necessarily, but can you expect more out of him each year, right? So it is an interesting, I don't know. I've had a couple conversations with our colleagues leading up to this interview. I don't know if I buy into that, that it's going to give them that depth that they want at center, but it obviously is an improvement in what they've tried to do. Obviously leaving out the trade deadline picks like the Monahans. I'm talking about a solution to have a guy here for training camp and see what happens. So I think there's an excitement there, and I'm kind of trying to balance the excitement of the Winnipeg Jets organization. You can see it very clearly again, how excited they are to have him here. And with the reality that this guy's a 37-year-old who's been away from the game. And while he is, captain serious, there's no doubt in my mind he's been putting in the work to get to where he is. It still feels like a bit of a question mark on what exactly they're going to get.
I'll say this about 37-year-olds. There is a lot of old man strength in that Cup final with what Brad Marchand's doing and Corey Perry. And
if you hear the reports, Huss, Brad Marchand's going to sign the biggest contract of his career.
Yeah, 4 years. Mm-hmm. Take him to 41.
Yeah, exactly. So, but to that point, that to be honest with you, the Jets were interested in Marchand at the deadline. Like,
who wouldn't be?
Of course, but now you say that, but I think it was a bit. I mean, it wasn't like it was a beyond savvy pick, but Brad Marchand's stock now versus where he was with Boston months ago are two very different places.
For sure,
like,
but
almost night and day.
The bottom line is, if Brad Marchand said, trade me, I don't care where I go, there would have been a dozen teams working on it. He said, Sweeney, I'll accept a trade to the Florida Panthers. Go find a deal.
And exactly. And look what he got to do, right? He got to play as a passenger on the Florida Panthers and still carved out a leading role, right? He wasn't asked to play against the other team's top line.
Almost won the Conn Smythe.
Exactly. Arguably should have. So this is the thing, Huss, is that but the big difference here is Brad Marchand's a 37-year-old who's played the last two, who's been in, even if his game's dipped, he's still competed against, NHL talent. There's too many unknowns here. And I don't know about how you feel. I don't really have a huge opinion about the money, to be honest with you. Does it feel a bit high if he hits all his bonuses? Not really, because if he hits all his bonuses, they're in the Stanley Cup final. So it seemed like it's exactly the price tag you'd want to have with him if he's in it. So I don't know. What do you make of the money?
Well, just on that, I mean, I think that, under any other normal circumstances, you're not getting a guy at $2 million, and then if things go well, it goes up. You're forking out a check. I mean, that's when the guys get paid the most for what they've done in the past. And here's your here's your $8 million, and then you cross your fingers it goes well. I mean, I think this protects
which has
the
fallen
team.
by the wayside for years, though, Huss. That's not the new.
Never.
Paying for what you've done is an old school thing. Blake Wheeler, I would argue, is the last player who signed a long-term deal for what he did, not what he was going to do.
Well, Brad Marchand's about to do that. I mean, if he gets 4 years, I mean, a team's going to be hoping, realistically. We hope that we can get 2 more great seasons out of Brad at 38 and 39. And then anything on that is a bonus. I mean, for sure. Listen, the league has moved younger, and younger players are getting bigger deals earlier because of, the value that they're bringing to those teams. But at the same time, and we're going to see this, we're going to see this on the 1st of July in a very scarce free agent pool. Players are going to be getting paid big money, big term, and most of those deals you're going to be projecting out and saying that the value of this is going to be nothing like what they delivered to their teams for their previous 7 or 8 seasons. That's just the way the league works now.
For sure. And I mean, I not to switch gears, but like I thought you made an interesting point about what this could mean for Nikolai Ehlers. And I've been thinking about Nikolai Ehlers for the last couple days. And what prompted me was watching that final, like not the final goal, but the tying goal against St. Louis. And there was probably like a musical track rendition to this post, so maybe it added a little more emotion to it. But while I watched this goal, all I could think about was if Nikolai Ehlers watches this video, okay, is part of this team who is clearly making steps, do you really want to get out now? Like, is now when you want to leave? Like, I mean, and the other part too is if the Jets, and we've heard Kevin Cheveldayoff say that he's going to make him an offer to be a Winnipeg Jet for life. If they offer him Scheifele money, like the $8.5 million, and he goes somewhere else and he takes 9 or whatever, I think that really speaks to how his time was here, because to leave what Winnipeg has built would take a lot. I know money speaks. I know the idea of free agency is awesome. This idea of being courted by a bunch of people, especially some of the teams we hear out there, like the Carolina Hurricanes or whatever. But I look at what they have here, the relationships that he's built here, the success that the Jets are starting to have, the pieces that they have. And then to walk away from that, to me, my opinion, would tell you everything you need to know about Nick Ehlers' experience here in Winnipeg.
Yeah, I mean, it's credit to Nick for, never doing anything through the media. His agent hasn't said anything. I mean, we ask all these questions because we really don't know. And presumably, whenever his decision is made, we'll find out about that. Many have speculated that, he wants a more impactful role, wants to be a first-line guy. I mean, certainly he moved to the first power play this year, and the results speak for themselves. And then maybe there's $11 million on the table from the Ducks or the Sharks or something like that. And it's like, it sounds like a pretty good place to live, and I'm going to get the most money. And that's totally within his rights.
Absolutely. I wouldn't blame him for that.
Time is going to tell on this, but I do wonder if this move today and the announcing it as they've done in advance, I guess if I had to say, I think it certainly wouldn't hurt their chances of retaining Ehlers, because I do think it is it's a really nice ad and one that'll be intriguing for a player like Ehlers that's gone up against for Toews for a good portion of his career and seen what he's done in the National Hockey League, pretty much knocking everything off the list that you want to do as a professional player.
It'd be great. This is one of those situations. It would be great to inject a player with truth serum, see, just to really know what Nikolai Ehlers thinks about Jonathan Toews being added. Like, maybe he thinks he's a terrific centerman and they could work together. Maybe he thinks, a 37-year-old that hasn't played for 2 years is the guy who's going to be dictating my season or my 5-on-5 play. Like, it would be really interesting. I do think, given, Vlad, I hate to do you dirty like this, Vlad, but like Toews to me right now seems like an upgrade to Vladislav Namestnikov. Like, Namestnikov has done a lot of great things. He's obviously has his fingerprints on that playoff run, if you want to call it that. And but there's so much, like, he's a guy that you want to keep around, but you don't want to keep him in that spot. So I do think Jonathan Toews might be seen as an upgrade. I don't think Nikolai Ehlers, and again, nothing against Vlad Namestnikov, but I don't think he looks at that as a solution. So whether or not he looks at Jonathan Toews addition as a solution, we don't know that. But if he does, I think that adds to this, right? I do think players want to be respected. I do think players want to have top line minutes. But what we saw with Scott Arniel last year is that while he might not be on the top line 5-on-5, he is a weapon on the first power play. And so maybe there is that relationship he has with Scott Arniel that makes him think that there's more to come. And all those things combined, Huss, again, I think is a really good situation for Nikolai Ehlers, assuming he can get north of 8 on a long-term deal here in Winnipeg.
Jeff Hamilton of the Winnipeg Free Press is with us. Obviously hit the top story of the day here in the PEG, the signing, the July 1st signing, but it's been announced already by the club that Jonathan Toews will resume his national hockey career as a Jet in his hometown. But let's get to what we were planning on talking about before this news broke in. The rematch between the Bombers and the Lions tomorrow night in BC and Hammer. You don't see this too often. Two quarterbacks going head-to-head, a rematch 9 days later, and two different starting quarterbacks. But that is the way it looks right now. Zach Collaros with a big-ass chip on his shoulder, I expect, for Winnipeg, and Nathan Rourke listed behind Jeremiah Masoli as a game-time decision, and Masoli the likely starter for BC.
Yeah, this feels a lot like Buck Pierce adopting Winnipeg's, I don't know what adjective you want to say. I was going to say slimy. It seems a little harsh to say slimy, but just that whole game time decision. Like, it's all gamesmanship, right? And it is, I think it's also a sign, I'll take away I'll take back the slimy comment, because it really is a testament to the players saying, hey, we're not going to rule you out until we have to rule you out, both from a strategy perspective, but also in a belief of that player. So I see Buck Pierce kind of playing with that. I don't expect Nathan Rourke to play. Doesn't make sense for him to play, especially when you look at the amount of pressure that Winnipeg was able to get on him in the first game. So if his oblique injury is an issue, I would, or at risk of getting worse, I would certainly not put him back in front of that defensive line and hand it over to a veteran like Jeremiah Masoli, because there's lots of season left here. I'm with you though, Huss. I think Zach Collaros is going to be possessed tonight. I think there is a lot of anger brewing in him. I think there's a lot of, proving critics wrong might be the wrong way to classify it, but I don't necessarily think it's 100% wrong. I do think when you look at Zach's season last year, it was a little bit of I don't want to say a tale of two stories per se, but a guy who threw for his lowest amount of touchdowns, and his touchdown interception ratio was a lot closer than he was comfortable with, versus throwing a career high in passing yards as a total. And I'm really interested in seeing his connection with Dalton Schoen. We know how electrifying that was when Dalton Schoen was healthy, and how much Zach used him as a bit of a security blanket. When plays broke down, he was just such a reliable guy. Drew Woltarski, now with the Hamilton Ticats, was another guy who, when Zach went ad lib, was usually more often than not open. But anyways, I'm looking forward to that connection and seeing what Matthew Paterson can do for an encore. So we'll see what he can do. But as I said, in our chat for CFL 110 and in my CFL rundown column in the Free Press, don't be surprised if Quentin Cooley doesn't get his opportunities tomorrow night. He's a guy who, 5'7", but weighs 220 pounds, and was impressing with his physicality. So I know that they've been looking for an excuse to get him on the roster. So that ground attack, and really just building on from week one. And as we talked on CFL 110, this is the last game between these two teams. So you can wrap up the season series already if you're Winnipeg, with a win, of course, and then it goes to points, total points, or point margin, point difference. Or is it points? The points for, or is it point difference?
It's the differential.
It's the differential.
They got to win by 15.
Yeah, exactly. So, Bombers find themselves in a prime position in just their second game to put what many believe to be one of their fiercest rivals for fighting for that top spot in the West, and ultimately a trip to the Grey Cup. They can suddenly dictate that tiebreaker. Again, just 2 games into the year.
Hey, if they do bring in Cooley, how does that change part of it, the Paterson factor being the backup, was the fact that he was Canadian, Brady was Canadian, and obviously had a massive game. How much massaging of the roster are the guys out there do they have to do if they bring in an American running back?
So I'm looking at it right now here, Huss, and I don't think they need to do much, because if you look, when I was counting it earlier today, so you have Wallace, Kolonkowski, and Neufeld on your O-line, so that's 3. You have Kevin Clercius as your receiver, that's 4. You have Peterson as your running back, that's 5. You have Dembski as your one of your receivers, that's 6. And then you have Cramdy and Jake Thomas, 2 starters on defense, that's 7. You need 7 for your ratio. The thing is, when the Bombers talk about their ratio flexibility, so that's 8 starters for Canadians. So technically, they could put on Quentin Cooley the first play of the game. He could start as running back. The reason why you often hear Winnipeg talk about their ratio more than they ever have is because it was last year they were starting up to 10 Canadians, and that's taken a massive hit, obviously, with Liam Dobson now in Hamilton and Tyrell Ford in Edmonton, right? They lost those 2 Canadian starters. So those are kind of the, they still have some comfort. The issue is if one of those, Wallace goes down with another knee injury, well, now they're faced with their 7 starters, and that the answer to your question is a lot more complicated.
Hammer, what did you think of the game last night? Man, Davis Alexander. I know he left with a hammy, and the Elks had a big fourth quarter to potentially come in for a crazy backdoor cover. But Montreal still looks like the Montreal that many thought, including us, that was the team to beat this year in the Canadian Football League. And the Elks, I mean, tough opponent for your home opener with their situation. And then, next week they come to Princess Auto Stadium to take on the Bombers.
I've said this a couple times already on CFL 110. It's too early to make definitive statements, but I'm becoming more and more comfortable of considering the Edmonton Elks as being a disaster. Now, it's tough to say that to them because they did have a good first half in week 1 against BC, and then Rourke became Nathan Rourke, and they scored 4 consecutive touchdown drives. That obviously they were close to them. We saw Winnipeg pummel BC with their backup quarterback. So how good is BC? We still have to wait and figure that out. And then they played Montreal, right? They had the bye week, and then it's Montreal. And Montreal is the cream of the crop. Montreal will do what they did to Edmonton to probably every team in the league at one point this year. But it's just what you see, what you don't see from Edmonton, and that's any level of consistency, in any phase, right? I mean, Trey Ford does not look comfortable. He does not look like a guy who goes into the huddle and commands a huddle and exudes confidence. He comes in there, like we've been talking about, reads his play, goes in and starts to do a play. Like, to me, and I was having this conversation with a couple of people yesterday watching the game, and I've had this opinion for quite some time. You cannot make Trey Ford a classic CFL quarterback because he's not a classic CFL quarterback. So if Jordan McSimic thinks he's going to be this, he's kind of getting exposed here, if you've noticed that. If he thinks he's going to turn Trey Ford, whose best ability, he does have an arm. You can see it. He does have an arm, but his best ability is his athletic ability. If you can't build an offense around him, a unique offense to maximize his skill set, it's going to take him 5 years to learn how to be a pocket passer in the CFL, and nobody gets that time. So this experiment, to me, while it is unique this year in that he's getting it from the start, I want to see more plays and drives, and it's pretty easy for me to say that when you plan a rollout to him and he hits Dunbar on the sideline and then runs in for a touchdown, for an 18-yard touchdown. That's the kind of plays that Trey Ford is capable of. He needs to be involved in the run game. It needs to be a different looking offense than any other offense in the CFL, and arguably, different than any other offense ever in the CFL because of his athletic abilities. And if you're not willing to do that, if you don't have the right person to do that, you're going to have exactly the season that the Elks seem destined to have. They're going to be in games late when defenses play prevent defense. They're going to, claw away at certain things. They're going to rely on luck to get back into games. I just don't see anything impressive with them now, and I'm hoping to see more from them in the coming weeks. But unfortunately for them, do they got Winnipeg next week?
Yep.
Yeah. So things don't get any easier for them.
No. And I mean, listen, they've got Cody Fajardo there. And, for McSimic, who has been, tasked with putting together more traditional Canadian Football League offenses. I do wonder at what point they go to Fajardo, considering the desperate. I mean, they had 14,000 people there for that game last night.
Yeah, and listen, that's the other thing.
I mean, it's the worst. It's the perfect storm in a bad way for them, with the Oilers going all the way to the Cup, the hangover that sports fans are feeling there, and the fact that with the cost of attending games and just everything that goes into a Cup run, half their fans are probably broke right now after everything that happened with the Oilers. So, yeah,
great point. Great point on the Oilers playoff run. Every CFL team in those city, well, they like their counterparts. That's season tickets, right? That's not just games. That's season tickets.
Yeah, one ticket to an Oiler playoff game in probably round 3 or 4 would get you a pair of Elk season tickets.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about different economies of scale right now, and we certainly know how into it that team was. Just quickly on Montreal, I know Alexander left the game, put up some big numbers, and we saw.
Do you have
MVT.
him for under 299 passing yards?
I did. I had him over 2 touchdowns.
Okay,
so that came nice and early.
And did you see that? Oh no, it wasn't. No, different betting company. Never mind. They juiced Philpott's touchdown.
Oh yeah, well Philpott got her done.
Yeah, I was just looking at those odds and was like 299. Like that seems low because I don't think they're gonna have to pass. I didn't have any action on it. I noticed that he was gunslinging until he was hurt.
What was also really interesting is it was Trey Ford that ended up passing for over 300. But again, how many of that was in the fourth quarter when the Alouettes had sort of called off the Dogs? They had the majority of it right now. Just looking actually, and man, this is another reason why I love doing the CFL 110 show on Tuesday, because we get on these lines early. We'll go, by the way, Buck Pierce has confirmed that Jeremiah Masoli is starting. So thank you, Buck, for giving us the goods going into tomorrow. Bombers still a 3-point favorite I'm seeing right now. Riders are up to 4. When we were talking about it on Tuesday, the Riders were 2.5. Bombers were also 2.5 on that. And it was crazy. We put together that CFL 110 parlay that was boosted up at Coolbet to over 6-1. And as the lines changed,
you also had Calgary. You and I disagreed on Calgary.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, that was at the time when we kind of thought Drew Brown was going to be playing.
Well, and not to bother people as we talk here about our picks here or whatnot, but like that was the same. That's kind of the problem of Tuesday. For instance, in our ratings, I was leaning more towards Saskatchewan later in that week, but at that point in those lines, that's what we're counting. So.
Yeah, exactly, to go on. I mean, you don't have to bet it at that point, but I mean, if you're looking at early lines and making them early, you can do that. Needless to say, when we saw Dustin Crum taking reps as the number 1 QB, we looked over and I was actually on the lock shop it was Calgary -1 at that point, and I was talking about it as I was looking at locked, and then it's 3.5, it's 2.5, and now it's 3.5, and that is probably where it should be. But I mean, can you see who's the most likely upset of these games?
So
Riders
I was just going to
Stamps and Bombers. Who's the most likely team that can pull the upset as the dog?
So this is what I was thinking about these games. As I was thinking about it's like it's happened so often in the CFL. Like it's not just the CFL, but when it's just when things are supposed to go when things are tilted in such a big way, it's amazing how many times in the CFL it cheaters the other way. It's just insane. But to answer your question, I don't think that Vernon Adams is going to have a problem beating Ottawa. I guess to answer your question, I don't think Ottawa as the dog comes in and or Ottawa is gonna win that game. I think Calgary's got that game. With Rourke not playing, can't really give it to BC. So I guess that leaves me with Toronto. Yuck.
I think this is Chalk City this week, and
but maybe Toronto, because they're at home. They're, but the thing when I think about that, though, I think about Corey Mace. He's, obviously has a long history in Toronto. I look at AJ Ouellette, who, I don't think he wants to shove the rock down Toronto's throat, but he certainly wants to have a good game and is coming off a good game. Too bad for Kadeem Carey. He doesn't get his, he doesn't play with his chip on his shoulder. He'll be getting his Grey Cup ring in Toronto in his street clothes because he's he's on the practice squad now. But yeah, I guess I get honestly when you do it that way, I think I'm looking at BC probably, and I still don't like it. So,
yeah, no, I think I mean, just the 4-game favorite parlay I think might be coming through. Right now, Riders are the biggest favorite on the money line.
What's the biggest lesson here, Huss? Watch Tuesday.
Yes, it's CFL 110
watch
on Tuesday.
Watch Tuesday because by Wednesday. all that good information might be a lot different. So Tuesday is key. This is this is when it's NFL season. This is when I start my podcast. It's Tuesday morning. That's how you get it done, because that's when people jump onto these things.
We will be back at it on Tuesday again with another edition of CFL 110. But tomorrow we've got the doubleheader. Calgary and Ottawa at 3. Winnipeg, BC at 6. And then tonight in Toronto, the Rough Riders and the Argonauts. Hammer, have a great weekend. Thanks for doing this. And we will talk to you on Tuesday for CFL 110.
Always a pleasure. Let's do it soon.
Appreciate it. There's Jeff Hamilton. We're going to have a visit with Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. We'll open up marbles registration in a couple minutes. Huge thanks to Royal Sports for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. And guess what? I think there's going to be a big run on Winnipeg Jet Toews jerseys as soon as we have confirmation on Jonathan Toews' number with the Winnipeg Jets. Of course, Royal Sports is your number one sports superstore in town with the biggest selection of Winnipeg Jets merch. Bombers as well. Tons of exclusives that have just come out for the new season. Not to mention, as we get into summer officially tomorrow, soccer, baseball, softball, tennis, running, tons of bikes, a great Yeti section for you people getting out and after it over the course of the summer. It's all there waiting for you at Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. And follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. Of course, our friends at Boston Pizza. The playoff menu isn't dead yet because we got Game 7 in the NBA Finals. We'll hit that with Hacksaw coming up in just a minute, amongst other topics. Of course, the Triple Pep Pizza, the Wingman Pizza, the Canadian All-Star Poutine, the Wing Flights, the Scoville Showdown. It's all waiting for you at BP. And hey, if you can't make it down to Boston Pizza in person, order it online. Get it hot and fresh to your door by ordering at bostonpizza.com. All right, Hacksaw's locked and loaded. It is Beer Friday. Before we bring in Lee, let's give a big cheers to Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right, it's Friday. You know what that means. Our weekly visit with the man himself, Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. Check out his website, leehacksawhamilton.com, and make sure to give a sub to Hacksaw over on YouTube as well. Lee, what's up, buddy? How are you?
Go to ball games, do sports talk, drink beer, and eat. That's a pretty good combo up there, north of the border in the Great White North. How are you?
We are great. You know, it's funny you mentioned that. We did sample quite a bit of the amazing ballpark food at the game last night. We had a great turnout, sold out the entire lower patio for Winnipeg Sports Talk listeners, and just had a great time. And of course, the Bombers are on the road this week, but we'll be back at it. It should be another great game and a great crowd at Princess Auto Stadium. But you know what? The big news, speaking of moving to the 204, how about Jonathan Toews moving back to the 204 and signing with the Winnipeg Jets? This is, needless to say, Lee, completely pushed pretty much everything to secondary status today on Winnipeg Sports Talk, with the Jets getting a guy that is going straight to the Hall of Fame the second that he's eligible.
Can you not root for somebody that's come through the adversity that he's come through? I think that's the most stunning thing. You know, 372 goals, I think, in the course of his Blackhawks career sidetracked by the syndrome, the pain issue, muscular syndrome. I just did research. I read a story that he went to India to get special treatment. He just did not know whether he'd ever be able to walk and function as a human being, much less get back on the ice and skate. And here we are 2 years removed from his last game, and I think it was April of 2023, and he signed a free agent contract. So how can you not root for a guy who has really persevered through some unbelievable stuff? And it had nothing to do with a cheap shot injury, or it's a sickness and it's an illness. And they finally figured out how to treat it. And as it relates to Jeff Lee and Kyle and all those other guys there, It's a pretty good insurance policy player if he can be anything near what he was while I was a Blackhawk. But, kind of made my day from a hockey perspective. I've been reading a lot of hockey this morning, getting ready for the NHL draft. But this is such a cool story. So root for the guy. For sure.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, listen, people are really excited. And again, there's a wide range of possibilities of what he'll be as a Winnipeg Jet. But, the way the contract is put together, it seems to be pretty much low risk. And this is the guy that can help you on the ice. And I think in many different ways with young players and experienced veterans alike, considering the experience he has and what he's accomplished in his NHL career. Moving over to the National Football League, we're just coming out of OTAs. We're getting ready for training camp. And I mean, is there a more interesting daily storyline than the QB room of the Cleveland Browns League?
I've covered this a long time. I broadcast 17 years in the NFL with the San Diego Chargers and the Seattle Seahawks, and been doing TV since that point in time. And I can't imagine a modern-day NFL team, Hustler, carrying 4 active quarterbacks. But that's what came out of Cleveland's front office this week. Think about that. You're going to have 4 active quarterbacks on a roster, a 53-man roster. You got to be kidding me. How's that possible?
Are they playing special teams?
No, they're going to observe and hold clipboards. A lot of clipboards be going and passing around. It's obvious to me that the ex-Steeler and the ex-Eagle is going to be the starting quarterback because they've given him the bulk of the snaps during the
Can he
OTA.
pick it over Flacco?
Yes. Flacco will be the insurance policy, but they're not going to cut him. There had been a report a couple weeks ago Flacco was going to ask for his release, but at this point that has not happened. And then Cleveland just this past Wednesday said, yeah, we're really considering carrying all 4 quarterbacks active. Dylan Gabriel, amongst the kids, has got most of the snaps. And Shedeur Sanders has really been on the taxi squad, the developmental group, with all the other rookies and street free agents. And he's done okay in certain segments, but he's not really done 11-on-11 passing drills against the number 1 defense, things of that nature. And then to complicate the whole equation is Sanders gets himself arrested twice in Cleveland for speeding. He was clocked at 91 miles an hour in the middle of the night a couple of weeks ago. And then the other night, he was clocked at 101 on the Interstate 71 just outside of Cleveland. Yeah, there's a whole maturity thing here that just keeps bubbling right back up. And, Shedeur acts like I'm dedicated. I'm spending 10 to 12 hours in the facility daily, and I'm taking in every piece of information I can. But then you find out this stuff about what he's doing off the field, and it's just like he's entitled, and there's rules for you and me, but there don't seem to be rules for the rookie quarterback from Colorado. So I was also told by a Cleveland guy that they don't want to put him on waivers to try to get him on the developmental squad because they think somebody else will claim him. But his stupidity, this is the bottom line on every discussion right now, his stupidity, Hustler, the way he handled himself at the combine, the workouts, the meetings he blew off, the condescending nature of his interviews with coaches, etc. If he had been drafted 2, 3, or 4 in the first round, he would have gotten $12.4 million per season because that's the slotted number for the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th pick in the draft. By getting drafted in the 5th round, he's making $1.1 million, and he could be cut tomorrow. I mean, this is all a byproduct of his entitlement and the way he acts, and obviously what the professional football people viewed on video of him and what he played and the system he played in. And I had a scout tell me it was a junk formation. The wide receivers made everything happen. It wasn't just Shedeur Sanders. And he's got a lot to prove now. And now he's got traffic tickets all over the place. And he was a no-show in Corso. It's bizarre. Everything in the 216 area code in Cleveland, Hustler, is kind of bizarre.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, listen, I want to hit you at the NBA final in that ball game last night, but quickly, what's going on in Kansas City with the O-line? I mean, this has been an area that they've looked to improve. I mean, they've got Creed Humphrey in the middle. They picked a tackle in the first round, but it seems like it's very much a work in progress for the Chiefs, and that has to be better if they want to be back to where they're accustomed to being in the AFC standings.
Well, Hustler, there's no doubt that they had to fix this, and they tried last year, didn't work, and then they had injuries. So they went out and they got Jalen Moore, who's kind of an unpolished young veteran from the 49ers. It looks as if he's going to be their left tackle. And they drafted the Ohio State kid, Josh Simmons, who obviously, weirdly, he's from here. He's in San Diego. And I know him, and he's just a big kid who's really grown into the position, but he had a major knee injury, patella tendon. He played left tackle at Ohio State. They've just indicated they're going to try him at right tackle, and he's got medical clearance, and he's big as the state of Rhode Island. He's a monstrously big guy. They're going to start him at right tackle when they open camp in July. And Jawan Taylor, who they gave a lot of money to, signed him from Baltimore a couple of years ago. Mr. Offside, Mr. Illegal Alignment. There's a report out there. They're just going to get the contract and waive him. They owe him 1 more year on the deal. So it looks like Simmons might be the right guy and the 49er free agent might be the left guy. And they have to fast forward the better protection package around Patrick.
Lee, how about the show the Pacers put on last night? I think a lot of people had written them off after losing game 4 and game 5. We're ready to crown the OKC Thunder the champions last night. Reggie Miller in the house, Ron Artest, a bunch of Pacers legends, and man, did they show up. We got the game 7 in the NBA Finals for the first time since 2016 on Sunday.
Yeah, the stunning thing is, and it's been fascinating to watch it out here on the West Coast, where everything here is always about the LA Lakers and the big news that they made. But Oklahoma City's got a phenomenal breed of athletes. But yet they have had some games in which you say, where is their game? Where is their heart? Where is their grit? You just can't live on athleticism. And that sucker last night in Indianapolis was just a monstrous blowout. And this is an Indiana team that has Halliburton playing with a bad calf, and he had no baskets the game prior with the injury. I thought, how's he going to hold up? Well, he didn't have to hold up because Indiana hit 8 of their first 10 shots, had a 17-2 scoring run in the second quarter, built a 31-point lead in the third quarter. And this is against the hottest team in the NBA, Oklahoma City. I'm going to be curious to see as we go to Game 7 whether OKC just thinks they can show up in their home arena and just blow them out again. But remember this, they lost one of the first games of the series at home, and there's no doubt that Indiana's not afraid to play with a little bit grit and grime and kind of punch the guys wearing the jewelry and the glitter in the mouth. So I don't think this is a guarantee Oak City's going to win. They should win. I thought the series was going to go 5. But sucker, we're going to play 7. That's absolutely hard to believe. And the most fascinating thing of everything, all things Indiana basketball, the whole universe is looking at Indiana. Because not only we got the Pacers, you got everything going on with Caitlin Clark, the WNBA, the hate, the hard fouls. The whole universe is swirling around downtown Indianapolis in basketball right now.
Well, listen, Caitlin Clark is such a phenom. And like the Panthers went back-to-back and won the cup earlier this week. And you looked at social media, you looked at a number of sites, and what were they talking about? They were talking about the hard foul in the final 2 minutes of a WNBA game. That is the star power of Caitlin Clark, and it really is amazing what she's done to the NBA, the visibility of it, and how many people are legitimately interested in the league that weren't before she showed up night after night, not just when the Fever are on national television.
Well, their TV ratings went down 41% in the 2 weeks that she did not play because of the quad injury, and then she comes back, and then there's the ugliness of the hard fouls and the flagrant fouls by the Connecticut Sun, and then the retaliation of one of her teammates. I've never seen a headlock block on a play down on the baseline. The WNBA's got a credibility problem, though. They cannot allow Caitlin Clark to be a victim all the time and just get battered by all these other jealous players. And the other thing is the officiating that stood there and watched all this junk happen to Caitlin Clark and not eject anybody. Got to be kidding me.
They gave her a tech on that play that she got knocked down. I mean, it was crazy. And listen, I don't want to disrespect everybody else in the league because there's so many great players by saying that Caitlin Clark is the WNBA, but she is a needle mover in a different stratosphere than everybody else. And it's been fun to watch. And I mean, certainly it is great for the league. And even this drama is as well to an extent, but it's something that can't be what it's about. Let's focus on the great plays as opposed to BS after the whistle and revenge and all of that. Hacksaw, before we go, I have to ask you about, I'm sure you were watching last night, and anyone that was paying attention after the football game ended here. I didn't watch the first 8 innings, but I tuned in for the 9th inning of the Dodgers-Padres game last night, and that was absolutely wild, folks. If you missed it, it started off, Padres are up 5-0. Fernando Tatis gets plunked. The manager of the Padres was absolutely incensed at Dave Roberts. The bench is clear. They have a conversation. Things cool down. And then later on, Shohei Ohtani comes up and gets plunked. And Lee, maybe you can take it over from there, because that was a scene unlike anything I have ever seen in baseball. And it speaks to the unicorn that Shohei is when he walked over to the bench afterwards. And normally when a guy has just been plunked and goes at the other team's bench, you think that something really bad's going to happen. Shohei did the exact opposite. It was something unlike anything I've ever seen before.
Well, the history is the Padres and Dodgers have had a pretty good rivalry the last couple of years, because the Padres have finally gotten pretty good, and the Padres almost knocked them out of the playoffs last year. But there were a lot of incidents during the course of last season's games: beanballs, knockdown pitches, hard slides, arguments, ejections, guys going into the stands to catch balls and then celebrating in front of Dodger fans in LA, which really pissed a lot of people off. So anyhow, that's a fierce rivalry. So then we get to this year, and the Dodgers are the evil empire because of all the money they've spent, and Padre fans don't like Dodger fans and vice versa, etc. Now, they don't schedule them till this past week. They played 4 road games in Los Angeles, 4, and they start throwing at each other. Tatis got hit 3 times in 4 games. Ohtani got plunked twice with 100-mile-an-hour pitches. But the storyline is Tatis jams home plate. He strides into everything, and he gets hit a lot. He's going to take one in the face one of these times just because the way he stands at home plate. They didn't throw at Tatis. Padres' back end of their bullpen is really shaky and bad. They can't control their stuff. And then Ohtani got plunked. Well, Ohtani got plunked by a relief pitcher who shouldn't be here, should be in AAA. But then he got nailed in the bottom of the 9th inning by Robert Suarez, the ace reliever, who's never hit a guy, and he hit him with a 100-mile-an-hour fastball in the upper part of the back. And this is after everything else had boiled over. The 2 managers don't like each other. This has been going back a year and a half, etc. There should be a suspension. Dave Roberts should never have been able to come out and put his hands on Mike Shildt. Shildt should get fined because he's the one that started to run towards the Dodger dugout when he broke away from the umpire. And Suarez and the other guys who had already been warned and got ejected probably have to be fined too. I understand the code of conduct, etc., but Tatis didn't respond. Ohtani didn't respond. They're both really low mentality guys in terms of emotion. They are even Steven. But it was really ugly. And when you're playing with people's careers, and you got the young pitchers out there, the Dodgers breed all these 100-mile-an-hour guys who can't control their stuff. You don't want somebody to take one in the head. And we've gotten awful close to that during the course of this rivalry. So this thing goes back a year plus, and it's gotten more incensed this year. I just hope baseball puts a lid on it, because it is a great rivalry. It's electric. Dodgers had 53,000 every night. Padres had 43 to 45,000 a week ago when the Dodgers came in here. So they play each other 6 more times. So we haven't heard the end of the story.
How did you see just that act when Ohtani, after being hit, walked over to the Padres bench from first base?
Well, he's friends with Arise and a couple of other guys. Well, he doesn't speak the language very well. But, when he first got hit, the Dodgers were ready to come out of the dugout again. And he was just leaving the batter's box. He put his hands up and said, "I'm okay." Now, he might have been gritting his teeth because it was a 100-mile-an-hour fastball in the upper part of the back. But then as he got to first base, he kind of joked with Arise, and then he walked over to the bench and calmed the Padres down. But it's a bad optic for baseball. And I do understand, quote, the code. But this should not happen, because we're talking about dangerous situations with star players.
Yeah, this is the picture. This is the picture of it for those of you that are with us on YouTube, where he walks over with his hands behind his back. It was very clear that he wasn't coming in an aggressive manner.
He was smiling
with the smile on his face. I mean, only Shohei. I mean, it was a bizarre scene, something that I'd never seen before, but just speaks to the unique one-of-one that Mr. Ohtani is now playing with the Dodgers.
So different a person. I mean, it's phenomenal just to watch him. And, for the baseball diehards, or the people that really know the structure of baseball, what he's about to do, in addition to being a DH every minute of every day and now to pitch once per week, and the mental and physical preparation to do both, and the academic study of video of pitchers you're going to face or hitters you're going to throw to. He's going to start again this coming Sunday against Washington, and continue to build him up from the second elbow surgery. Enjoy. I tell people all the time, enjoy when you get the chance to see him, because we're probably never ever going to see this again in Major League Baseball. This is one of the greatest of all time.
One other thing that just really stood out to me watching those teams, and listen, I know Remis was a huge Ichiro fan. I was as well. Always been fans of some of the Asian guys that have come over. Toronto's had a few. I mean, Kawasaki was just an absolute beauty. We've seen Hideki Matsui before. But right now, this seems to be like a golden age of not just Japanese players, but, Asian players in general. And it was on display last night. I mean, it was Matsui finishing up the game on the bump for the Padres. And you go down that list. Kim was, on base earlier on. It's so different. I mean, for a long time, the Asian players were sort of a rarity. And now we're seeing big money and top players in very important positions in the lineup outside of the Unicorn Ohtani playing big roles for top teams in the league.
Yeah, and the Dodgers have the young Japanese sensation, though he's hurt right now, Roki Sasaki. But things have changed over there. The Nippon Baseball has allowed their young stars to make a decision. Will they sign and stay in Japan? Used to be a rule you couldn't leave until your 9th year of veteran free agency, the Daisuke Matsuzakas, et cetera. Mm-hmm. But you've got more and more great high school players. Some of them are coming this direction. You got young guys who played 3 or 4 years, like the young Dodgers shortstop outfielder Hyeseon Kim, who's Korean. He's come. And by the way, Michael, when I see Kim swing the bat, it reminds me of Ichiro all the time. So there's a lot more volume of players, and now there's been a lessening of the rules in Japan, Korea, Taiwan. So the Pacific Rim has now become another vital developing ground. You're not going to get these guys very cheap. Ohtani came to the States, came to the Angels in a very unique contract because he wanted to come. He was not, quote, a true free agent that could have gotten mega bucks. He came at a very reduced contract. After 6 years, he became a free agent here. And then obviously, we know the history of the $700 million package he signed with the Dodgers. But baseball right now in Japan, the average, get this, Hustler, 22 million viewers for Major League Baseball. MLB games televised back to Japan, 22 million per game.
It's funny. I was thinking about that as I was watching this, going, "Oh my God, what must the Japanese be thinking right now?" As Matsui was on the bump, and then I pulled up the world clock on my iPhone. I'm like, "What time is it right now in Tokyo?"
10 a.m. I think it was.
Yeah. Well, by that time it was 2:23, but I guess these games are starting at 10 or 11 in the morning. So kind of like our NFL Sundays, here are the baseball days in Japan to watch all these stars. Lee, what's cooking for the weekend? Obviously, we got Game 7 on the finals. What's keeping you busy at LeeHacksawHamilton.com and on the YouTube channel?
There are not enough hours in the day to do all this. Great exclamation point. I had to rip up everything that I'd written from my website, LeeHacksawHamilton.com, last night at about 10:30 because there were two things that happened. We had ICE immigration try to get into Dodger Stadium's parking lot yesterday, and I had to write a story about that. And then I was writing a story, the Dodgers are losing 5-0 to the Padres, and then this eruption, and then the brawl, then the bench clear, then the beanballs, and then the Dodgers almost came back and won that game. So I had all this stuff I was rewriting. So if you like sports, because I cover it all, we're talking extensively baseball, but that and the NFL and the NBA, I read a lot of hockey. Congratulations to Florida. I'm waiting for the dominoes to start to fall in Edmonton. If I were king, if I were the Oilers, I got to get a new goaltender or get a goaltender come in that's going to compete. And that goaltender is John Gibson of the Anaheim Ducks. And we might see between now and what your draft is this coming Friday, right? A week from today. I think Edmonton's going to have to make a move on goal. And I'd like to see John Gibson get freed from the rebuild in Anaheim and maybe spend his last 2 years on a really good team, because that's the one thing. Hate to say and be critical that they're wasting Connor McDavid's and Draisaitl's career, but they haven't gotten a cup yet. And the flip side of that dollar bill is congratulations to Bill Zito. the job he's done stockpiling talent. And I was shocked when I found out, and I researched. Hustler, they have only 3 of their own draft picks on that team. The entire compilation of that roster are guys that Bill Zito traded for or signed as free agents. I mean, how about that? So it's great. So we're going right from the end of the NHL playoffs right into the draft, and then here comes free agency right after that. So there will be no time to take off.
Hacksaw, have a great weekend, pal. Thanks for doing this as always.
Hey, have a great sports weekend. Enjoy your beer Friday. Thanks for being on the show.
You got it. There it is. All right. There is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. And Remis is just letting me know that I guess there's been a conversation with the Gus Bus, because Jonathan Toews will wear number 19 for the Winnipeg Jets. So you can head down. You can head down to Royal and grab a Toews 19 and be the first one on your block for the newest member of the Winnipeg Jets. Huge thanks again to our friends at the Gold Eyes last night. What a great time everybody had. And thanks to all the Winnipeg Sports Talk listeners and viewers that came and joined us. Man, that was a great night. Heck of a game. Big 8-7 win for the Fish. They're back in action tonight. 80s night, Rubik's Cube giveaway. You want to bring the kids out, they'll be showing E.T. on the big screen afterwards if you want to stick around for that. 982 base, goldeyes.com for tickets. They're at home throughout the weekend, finishing up with a matinee on Sunday afternoon. Of course, live racing at Assiniboia Downs is back next week, and we do have a Monday card. So next week, if you're planning when you're going to head out, it is Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, 7:30 p.m. with live racing. And if you want, head up the, give them a call, 888-3330 for a booking in the dining room at Assiniboia Downs for that world-famous prime rib buffet. Quick golf report for our friends over at Breezy Bend, home of the 2025 Manitoba Open. The Travelers Championships is on right now. Big round today for Justin Thomas. He was 6 under par, as was Denny McCarthy. Yesterday's leader, Scotty Scheffler, who had an 8 under 62, was only 1 under today. So it's JT and Scotty tied at 9 under. Jason Day and Denny McCarthy tied at 7 under. And then Nick Taylor and Adam Hadwin, the 2 Canadians, tied for 5th at 6 under par, along with Austin Eckroat and Keegan Bradley. This is a fun tournament. It should be a great weekend. Rory McIlroy, 2 over on his round so far. He's at 4 under. And Keegan Bradley was 1 over. He's playing with Rory. He's back to even for his round, maintaining 6 under par as they get around to the back 9. If you want more information on Breezy Bend, getting on the waiting list for upcoming next season and making it your long-term golfing home, give our pal Corey Johnson a call at the clubhouse or find out more information online at breezybend.ca. All right, last call for marbles, everybody. Reem, if you want to wrap that up so we can get to it, I'm going to dive over to the Coolbet lines. And, well, it's a fun day. And as I pull up the account, I'm like, oh, geez, that's a bigger number than I expected. Yes, our Jonathan Toews bets are in, and they're already settled. So if you got on Toews at plus 250 or plus 225 for this next team to be the Winnipeg Jets, you got a little extra spending money or betting money for the weekend. That was very nice to see. Toews is a Jet and a few WSTers and lock shoppers making a little money on it over at Coolbet. CFL lines, we touched on this a little bit with Hammer. Wow, the Riders are now up to 4.5-point favorites. That was 4 when we talked to Jeff. Minus 222 on the money line. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers, 3-point favorites over the BC Lions. Again, it is official. Jeremiah Masoli will be the starter for BC. It's Zach Caleros for Winnipeg. And no Drew Brown for Ottawa, which has made the Calgary Stampeders a 3.5-point favorite at home against the Ottawa Red Blacks. Jays hosting the Shy Sox tonight. Jays minus 200. Of course, we do have Gold Eyes lines. And the Gold Eyes are minus 133 favorites against Sioux City tonight down at the ballpark. Tomorrow, Canada is playing Curacao in the Gold Cup. Canada's a massive favorite in this game, minus 417 to win. Canada minus 1.5, so Canada to win by 2 is minus 137. We might be even able to take that a bit bigger, like Canada by 3 plus 185. When you saw how they exploded offensively in game number 1, scoring as many goals as they had in the 4 Gold Cups between 2009 and 2015 with 6 in one game. And we're still waiting. Hopefully going to have Brandon Dunlop on the program on Monday to talk about what's going on with CONCACAF and Jesse Marsh and Canada's progress through this tournament. Everything's up at Coolbet. Don't forget, if you are betting, if you're a golf guy, make sure to opt in for the golf trip of a lifetime to Cabot Links with 3 friends. Maybe the best promo that they've ever had. You can find out more information in the promotions on that. And Monday night, 8:30 p.m., will be our next WST poker tourney. And this is a special one. If you missed Pat on the program yesterday, the top 2 finishers in our WST tournament on Monday are going to advance to the Canadian Championship, where the winner will receive a trip to Estonia for the Coolbet Poker Open later on in August, I believe. Pat laid out the incredible prize package available for that. And as someone that went to the Costa Rica Poker Open with Coolbet, I can tell you the events are amazing. Really, really fun. We've had so much fun with the poker tourneys just within our group, but if you have any friends that love to play, get them in. We'll post all the information on the socials as to how to enter, or you can send us a DM. But if you go to Coolbet, download the poker app for your computer, and then get in there, you click on tournaments. You just search WST, count yourself in, and we'll see you there Monday night, 8:30 p.m. Winnipeg time, to get things going for the next event in the WST Poker Series. All right, well, this has been a fun show today, talking Jonathan Toews. I think we know who's getting a marble today. Let's get Michael Remis back in here and get ready for action. Nice to see so many people that maybe were sleeping a little bit on joining us on YouTube, because, man, the numbers speak to the excitement about the Toews signing today, Reem.
Yeah, welcome back, everyone. We're still here. We haven't left, and great to see the excitement for Jonathan Toews, which I imagine will be a very busy week. This week gives me a lot of flashbacks to past weeks leading up to the draft. One of our bigger shows in history happened during this week when Pierre-Luc Dubois was traded from the Winnipeg Jets to the LA Kings. I'm trying to think of other ones, but that one is really blocking my memory of draft week. I just remember being in Nashville. Last year we were in Vegas for the draft. This year we will be remote, at home, like everyone else. Will they draft from the, Dolby Theater? What's it called? The Kodak Theater? They change the name every year. Paramount Theater?
What's going to be interesting is who's making the picks. I think all the teams are sort of working on some special guests to go in and make selections. So I have no idea who Winnipeg is cooking up. I'm available if they need. They need us to roll up on stage and announce a pick. I'd be happy to do that. I could make my way down to LA for that.
Okay, sorry. It's the Peacock Theater, formerly the Nokia Theater and Microsoft Theater. But yeah, I'm curious who are they going to get, because when Celine Dion came out last year, I mean, there was a huge pop.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
That was a really, really cool moment. One of the things that really stood out from the incredible show that the league put on in Vegas. And this is the thing. With this moving to LA, to this remote thing, no one wants to do it this way. They're going to save a bunch of money, but it does seem like they're going to be getting back to normal draft activities next season.
I don't even think they are saving money, because they realize, wait, we still have to pay to fly all our scouts to our home city anyways and put them in a hotel. So maybe you save like a bit that you're not paying like Chevy to go anywhere. But I think it was marginal, and they created a lot of buzz last year with the Sphere. It was awesome. Just looking at the graphics. Like, I was captivated for each pick, and I don't think you can say that about a lot of drafts. And yeah, we got to bring out the celebs to make the picks. So we'll see. I'll be tuning in. But big week has, so many transactions. You touched on a lot of them with Greg Wyshynski, Mason Marchment getting traded. We had questions about Dallas. Someone was asking if you talked about McDavid's. Comments touched on it all with Greg in a great segment about the offseason, which is underway, and the Jets. The big story, front cover of what? NHL.com. Taves is back. I'm sure the other sites, it's up there as well. Oh, no, sorry. Maple Leafs have Mitch Marner on the front page, of course. But, sorry, TSN's got Mitch Marner on the front page, not Taves. But I know it's a top story in the hockey world.
No, it certainly is. All right, let's do it. How many marbles do we have today?
Oh, let me do it. Do we go? You did the lines already.
Yeah. We've just done the lines. We're ready to go. We're locked and loaded for the weekend. And shout out to everyone that jumped on our CFL 110 parlay on Tuesday because we got an unbelievable number before these all changed. Hopefully, the Riders and the Bombers can come through and cash that one for us. We need them both to win by 3, thanks to once the Alouettes took care of business last night against the Elks. So I guess, you know what? The one guy we did miss last night was Tristan Rivers, the one and only Tristan Rivers music at the ballpark. But we certainly won't be missing him now because we cannot fire up the Friday afternoon marble race without first introducing it without one of the classics of the marble song from none other than TRM. Let's hit it.
Yeah, let me just pull it up. Tristan was in band practice with his Guns N' Roses cover band. Big shows.
Killing it at the X.
Coming up. Yeah, they dominated the X. Them and they were at, did AC/DC and then changed costumes to put on the Guns N' Roses gear. It was transported back to 1987 there. Anyways, here's the Marble theme song.
It's Friday, another week of work's gone by. You deserve to treat yourself, maybe an ice cream cake or a bottle of rye. You want the whole team, so that's you can't deny. Why use effort even for pleasure? Give my life a try.
All right, marbles time on Taves Day here in Winnipeg. I think we know who's getting a marble today. That is the man of the hour, homecoming for Jonathan Toews, Reem. And I think there's a lot of love for Gus giving up 19. So maybe we give the Gus bus a marble as well while you're sticking Toews in, and throw me in all caps as well if you don't mind.
Sure, I've got you in there. So we have a lot of marbles, 275.
Nice.
Marbles in there. And I do got to give a shout out again. We didn't touch on it a ton, but that night at the Gold Ice last night, the patio party, that patio that we had, on left field on top of the bullpen. I felt like I was like sitting in the bullpen with all those guys. I mean, what a great venue. Tables, we had our own bar. The game didn't go under 2 hours. It was an exciting 8-7 finish. That was the weather, incredible. Makes you want to go back tonight for 80s night with the Rubik's Cube giveaway. So shout out to the Gold Eyes. I'm rocking the retro Gold Eyes hat.
It was a heck of a game. It was a heck of a game, and I did say that with us being at the ballpark, I was going to auto bet the Gold Eyes now that they're available on Coolbet. So I now have my first in-person winning bet at Blue Cross Field after that thrilling 8-7 win. And listen, that patio deck was so fun. A lot of people that were really into the game went to the front or into the seats just outside. And it truly was a patio party in the back with so many of the WST listeners. So again, too many people to list and to thank, but to everyone that came out, great to see all of you. And we'll look forward to doing that again, maybe a little later on this season, and getting the gang back together for another great day out at Blue Cross Field. One thing, just while you get those loaded up, Reem, We should do some sort of a post on some of the many incredible delicacies that were consumed last night. You hit the barbecue spot. I had the butter chicken. The Gitch went all the way over to Bodego's, had one of the noodle boxes, but also got what they call the cheese bat.
Yes,
which is a massive mozzarella stick, like a baseball bat. I had not seen that one before. That one was a big time. We saw, what else we did see? We saw hot dogs, many little brown jugs and generics, but it truly was. Connor went with the nip and the chips. Very different fries that you'll get at the ballpark than you would at a regular Salisbury house. And, and Liz got the ice cream nachos. I'm glad I remembered this just before we do marbles. Liz was mentioning these ice cream nachos, and we had everyone out in a suite at the end of the season. And Liz and Connor there, kind of the WST team and a few friends. And I missed these ice cream nachos last year. Well, she got them, and it was myself, Connor, and Ken Weeb was there, and we all got to try them. They were amazing. I think you get them at that Sonia's ice cream stand. And it's essentially kind of like waffle cone chips with ice cream on the side and like a caramel sauce on the other side. Well, the ice cream was gone. The chips were gone. But there was still about half of the container of the caramel sauce. Ken Weeb took it down straight.
What?
He probably ate 3 to 4 ounces of straight caramel sauce from the ice cream nachos. It was funny. Kenny is a very picky eater, but when he likes something, he really likes something. And I think it's safe to say that caramel sauce is high up on the Ken Weeb power pole because he cleaned it out after all the ice cream and everything else was gone.
Wow. Caramel. Pretty awesome. So, what do you got? 278 marbles. Jared Kronk's getting cronky that we haven't dropped him yet. So let me just pull up the track.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Chill out, Cronky. We got marbles dropping right now on WST. There was lots to talk about today. It was Toews Day. We had the ball game. We got a Bomber game tomorrow. This is where it's all happening. But it is that time. It is that time. What track are we going today?
I tested a bunch. I couldn't really find anything that I liked. So I went back to Dylan 70.
Yes.
And grabbed Adorable Angelic Universe. Adorable Angelic Universe. Let me pull it up here. There we go.
All right. Whoa. I don't know if I remember this one. Have we done this one before?
I don't remember this one either. It's a crazy start, but I don't think any of these obstacles come into play.
All right. Well, let's see it. Another new track, The King, Dylan 70 and his tracks. Jonathan Toews is in. The Gus Bus is in. 273 others are in. Let's drop them and kick off the weekend right now on WST. See who wins the WST hoodie. Shout out to our friends at Shipham & Associates for helping us out with those beauties to go to our marble winners. Drop them, Reem.
Sure, and shout out to Al Broderick, who took all the pictures. I have to post some on our social media. I had the meat sweats when I got home, so I had to lay down.
Al and Linda Broderick, both champions of the marble race. And Linda made these incredible, whoa, what's going on here? Everyone's getting thrown out. Many eliminations early on. Looks like JDSM is in first place. Todd 18. Is Todd Todd is out. JDSM is the only marble that seems to have been able to get through the start right now. And his lead just keeps on getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay, now we've got some more marbles chasing. Northside Sandwich, repping the EST, is in the mix right now. Darcy Marchuk Comet, the Danish Dash, Kevin Keith Barkman, John Pauls. All right, JDSM has hit a bit of a snag, but still has a nice lead. We'll see if any of these marbles can quickly make it down through this funnel. Derminator, Chubb's Power Sports in the house. There's the Comet. But JDSM still in first place. Derminator trying to make up this gap right now. And Big D Winnipeg as well. All right, JDSM making it through the cylinder. And JDSM, I mean, this is going to be tough to catch him. He's got a big lead right now. Will anything stop him right now? Or will he cruise to one of the more comfortable victories in recent marble race history? It looks like Big Al Winnipeg is the only hope to catch JDSM. But JDSM is already running through. Could there be a miracle elimination at the end? It doesn't look like it. JDSM with one of the great performances in recent marble race history. Oh, and he did make it in, man. I thought he almost fell out at the end. There you go. JDSM, the winner. And I have a feeling we may have a lot of people burned by the fire right now because a lot of people aren't very close to making it. And the fire is going to be running after JDSM is in. This is definitely going to be one of the biggest gaps between first and second we've had in a really long time. VR Montenegro, speaking of Edmonton Sports Talk, VR getting in second. Big Al Winnipeg in third. John Paul's fourth. Cruiser fifth. Corey May sixth. Keith Bartell seventh. The SMA eighth. Schickster number 9, and STEM 10th. There we have it. JDSM 64. JDSM, hit us up, Winnipeg Sports Talk at gmail.com. Let me know what your hoodie size is, and we'll holler at you and arrange a time for you to come and pick it up. All right, let's get to the results, and let's see how everybody did. We went through the top 10. Keith Barkman, Dark Moon, Craig Smith, nicely done. Luka Rabchak. Luka was out at the game last night. Jerry Beluda, Al Broderick. What's up, Al? Duck Dad, Gary Labossiere, a proud MB, and only 29 through. And that was because the massive gap between first and second, the fire blew everybody up. But JDSM, I mean, what can you do? It was just an incredible performance, Remis. He ran away with it today.
Yeah, when I did a test run, it did not happen with one guy getting the lead, but that's what happens. I'd like to see more finishers, not my intent. That's just what happens with the marble race. Anything can happen.
It is. There is a high level of randomness in it today. But we'll be back at it next Friday, hopefully with a more competitive race. If we didn't say your name in the first 29, you, like everybody else, got burned and did not make it. Great stuff today. We obviously are going to be all over the Jonathan Toews contract signing, well, officially on July 1st, but I mean, the Winnipeg Jets have already announced a number for him. It will be number 19. Holler at our friends at Royal Sports if you want to get one of those done up and wear it throughout the summer. And I imagine at some point we'll hear from Toews. Certainly hear from General Manager Kevin Cheveldayoff. Huge week next week for the Jets in the National Hockey League. The draft on Friday and Saturday. And then, of course, free agency the following Tuesday, Canada Day, July 1st. But in the meantime, have a great weekend, everybody. Again, Goldeyes at home all weekend. We can have a beautiful night like last night, again tonight and going forward. It's no better place to be. And Bombers and Stamps tomorrow, 6 p.m. 6 p.m. Winnipeg time. It's not a late night game. So make sure to get your plans in for that. What do you got cooking this weekend, Reem?
Yeah, well, here tonight, Sea Bears taking on Vancouver, looking to extend the win
streak. That's a road
streak.
game, right?
That's a road game. I see Valor in town on the weekend. I'm playing hockey tonight. I do enjoy summer hockey. Nothing beats going to the rink in like flip-flops. I love it. So I got that going on, some birthday parties. My kids are finished school, so exciting times at my household.
Yeah, well, guess what? This is, I guess, our last show of spring because by the time we come back on Monday, it will officially be summer. Listen, it'll be one of the biggest weeks in the year for the offseason of the National Hockey League. Player movement, trades, draft, and we'll get all over it. We'll bring a few of our favorites in to get us ready for the first round and the top prospects, as well as all of our regulars to talk about where the Jets are looking this weekend and what's happening in and around the league. And, of course, Monday, I'll have a full recap and wrap-up of the Bombers' quest to go 2-0 tomorrow night in BC. Thanks again, Greg Wyshynski, for jumping on today, Jeff Hamilton, Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, and all of you for joining us today on the program. Much more on Jonathan Toews' edition of the Winnipeg Jets next week on Winnipeg Sports Talk. In the meantime, good luck to the Bombers, Sea Bears, and Gold Eyes this weekend. Have yourself a great one, and we'll see you back here 1 p.m. Monday for Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily to kick off another week. Have a great one, everyone.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.